Second down and 10. They're in field goal range. Pressure. He stepped away from it. Fires, and it is caught. Oh, the deflection. Jalen Pope, the touchdown off the hands of Malik Muhammad.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Has time. Delivers across the middle. And the catch is made by Tyler Morris, who tightropes down the sidelines. Touchdown, Michigan. What a play.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Was thrown for 398. Trying to get above 400, and he's on target. Odunze the catch with Ryan Watts.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
High punt, and it's buffed again and picked up at the 1 yard line. Well, it wasn't a turnover, but it sets up McCarthy a long way away. That was Jake Thaw back there, not Morgan this time.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
3 Michigan tight ends in the ballgame. They hand it to Corey McGinn and makes the cut. First down. Spins and scores. Blake Corr puts Michigan on top in overtime.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Advance to the national championship game. Ewers lobs it up, and it is incomplete. Intended for Mitchell. Elijah Jackson had the coverage. Washington hangs on and wins the All-State Sugar Bowl in the college football playoff semifinal.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, 365 Sports, and I need to reintroduce myself. David Smoak, one of the co-hosts of the show. I've been out, I've had a cough. I still have a little bit of that, so you might see me from time to time still kind of turn away. So it's glad to be, and I'm glad to be back. I'm not as sure about everybody else, but it's a Monday. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and also Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, Garrett Ross, and you. We appreciate you. It is the night of the national championship. It's a season that began with so much turmoil because of realignment, and it was still there. It's still there, and then so much else going on in college football. The Michigan scandal, or at least that story, it's still there. But tonight we crown a national champion with Michigan or Washington.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, the juxtaposition of two styles tonight. I think tomorrow morning will be really interesting with where is Jim Harbaugh working. I say tomorrow morning, but that's more figurative. Like this could be his last night at Michigan, regardless of what happens. So could be going out with a bang or not. How does Michael Penix look against maybe the best defense he's played all year? How does the Michigan defense look against probably the best offense they played all year? Does Washington, do what they've done in almost every single game and lead and look comfortable and then decide to,
play with their food?
Yeah, drive over the line, I guess, when it, close their eyes and hope for the best at the end of the game. I don't know. There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's national championship night, so long road to get here, and two great teams here at the end of the road. And I think that with Michigan, there's plenty of storylines. You mentioned Jim Harbaugh. You mentioned just their road to get to this point. They're going to feel like they have, their backs against the wall and against the entire world. In some cases, that's how they've had to kind of have that mindset because of all that was brewing around them off the field. But to get there to the very end and then to possibly hoist the trophy would be the biggest FU back to everybody else out there who called them cheaters and this and that into Ohio State and the media. and all of that. And for Washington, I think it would be a great capper to a terrific season. And it's that for Michigan as well. It's just that Washington had this other underlying storyline that was also ongoing. They've just kind of gone about their business playing football without those off-the-field distractions. But both are great teams. Both have superstars that are fun to watch and that we'll be seeing on the next level. And it's just a matter of tonight of whose stars shine brighter and which team overall plays the best. But I think it's a very interesting matchup with Washington's passing game and Michigan having a very stout defense. And flip-flop that, is Blake Corum going to be able to run all over the Washington defense like it appeared Texas was going to be able to do at least early on before they kind of got away from that. So, yeah, I love the chess match that we have in front of us. I think everybody analytically or otherwise has an idea of how they think this game will go, but we really don't know till they kick it off. So very excited and also bittersweet because it's the last college football game that we're going to see for quite some time, and it will be the real true off season, although that won't be slow news-wise by any means, but we do still love watching the games, and the fact that tonight's going to be the last hurrah is a little bit bittersweet, but that will lead into the craziness of the offseason. But, I think it's a great matchup, and I'm looking forward to it.
Washington will play the last game of the Pac-12 tonight, just like Texas played their last game in the Big 12 a week ago when they lost that game to, of course, the Huskies in the Sugar Bowl. Keys to the game, and I think this, and Dave Softy Mahler from KJR will join us in about 35 or 40 minutes. Angelique Chengelis covers Michigan, will join us in about 15 or 20 minutes. They're both in Houston for tonight's game between Washington and Michigan. So let's see, if we had a box to check, who would you give the advantage to, either one of you, and then you don't have to get too outwardly with it, but just kind of, you can answer it. Who is most likely to win the battle, or is it a split? Michigan's defensive line against Joe Moore award-winning Washington's offensive line.
I'm giving early edges to Washington across the board when it comes to a lot of these things. Michigan wins in the kind of old school fashion, more often than not. But just my question for Michigan, and because there's only at full strength, and this is all full strength, there's only about 4 teams in the country that have the combination of receiver, quarterback kind of threats that Washington does. And Washington's already beaten 2 of them, and 2 of them are Georgia and Florida State and weren't in the playoff. But they've already beaten Oregon and Texas. But Michigan hasn't played those teams yet. So that's where I think it goes in, and the Washington offensive line doesn't get talked about nearly enough because, they're just, that's what you do. But
they protected the hell out of Penix against Texas.
Yeah.
Now, they couldn't run the ball that well. They ran well enough.
And they haven't really done that all year. But as far as a pass-blocking offensive line goes, there's no better in the country.
I think if there's any advantage, it's kind of splitting hairs. I don't think it's going to be an overwhelming advantage of you clearly get this point and you don't get any point whatsoever. I think it's not going to be like 1-0 Washington's offensive line versus Michigan's defensive line. I could see where it's like a 0.75 to a 0.25, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I do give the edge to Washington's offensive line based on what we've seen up until this point, and I was very impressed by how they were able to fend off Texas's ultra-talented defenders up front, and just overall, Michael Penix's ability, even when he was feeling pressure, to escape that and to still be able to make plays, I think gives you a double whammy. It's like even if you are able to get free or get some room to get after him, he then has the ability, it's almost like a second level that you have to conquer to be able to just get the sack, right, or to get to him. So I give Washington, I guess, an advantage, I guess you would say, but that's where you start in this game in my mind, and I think that's going to be one of the most fun things to watch tonight is how well that Joe Moore award-winning offensive line holds up against a very feisty and nasty Michigan defense.
Yeah, Michigan defense got all in the business of Jalen Milroe, but even then, at the end of the game, there was a chance for that game to go, of course, into overtime. So then how about the Washington wide receivers, who we both know, all of us, 3 of us know, are very talented, against Michigan, and they've got themselves some stars that will be playing at the next level in the secondary.
Yeah, Michigan's secondary is fantastic. I really like Mike Sanistrell quite a bit. He's a tough player, kind of that old school, Rod Woodson type punch in the gut corner as well to go on with his athleticism, and that's really Michigan's whole defense. But, Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Polk are absolutely a nightmare for everybody because it's a situation like, what do you do? Like, what do you what do you try to take away? You know, in the Bill Belichick school of thinking at defense, at his best, and he still even does this, he knows what he takes away your safety outlet, right? That's where he messes with quarterbacks. He'll go and say, okay, if he doesn't complete passes to this guy on third down, then it's going to be fine. So if Michigan takes that tact, which guy is that? I mean, Rome Odunze is the one that they go to in the crunch moments and makes ridiculous things happen, but because all those guys are so good, what do you take away and hope for the best? It's really, and it's proven a near impossible decision for anybody this year because nobody's beaten Washington.
Yeah, I'll give the slight advantage again to Washington's wide receivers. I just think that they're so deep and so filled with playmakers. It's just hard to imagine a scenario, even with as good as Michigan's secondary is, to where they're just going to completely shut that down, because as we saw against Texas, and Texas did not have as good of a secondary, clearly, as Michigan. But even when they did have great coverage, it didn't matter in some cases. So this more or less boils down to me to more of Washington's wide receivers and Michael Penix, making them have the advantage over Washington's secondary, if that makes sense.
Michigan's secondary,
because he places it in the right spot, that no matter what kind of coverage you have, they still are able to convert it. That Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, McMillan, etc., are able to make the plays on the ball as opposed to, drops and things like that. So I think that's going to be more of the factor of just compared to Michigan playing a certain type of way is can Washington make that perfect throw in tight coverage? Can they make the catch in tight coverage like they were able to do against Texas on multiple occasions and like they've done throughout the year? And if they're able to do that, then Michigan can have as great of a secondary as they want, but it's still going to be a situation where Washington's going to make a play. So to what level are they able to continue on that path is what's really I'm looking at, and I think that I'm going to give the edge to Washington in that regard because, again, they've been doing that all year long.
If you're going to give a slight edge to Washington's offensive line against Michigan's front, then that has a hell of a lot to do with what you could do with your wide receivers compared to Michigan's secondary, loaded up with a lot of talent that they have. And then, of course, there's Michigan with Corum and what Edwards and what they do to run the football, because they basically just take your will. And Washington, as Craig, you mentioned earlier, they had some gaping holes that it appeared as if Sarkisian would have just kept running the football. One, they keep Washington off the field. I know that game was a week ago, but I don't know what the average yards per carry. I'm going to say at least 6 or 7, maybe on occasion it was 8 or 9 yards per carry, sometimes 10 or 12. But if they can run the ball the way Texas was able to run the ball, even without Jonathan Brooks, to me, that's how you keep Washington off the field, and that's how you give Washington a few nightmares on what they do on defense.
There was opportunities there, not only running it, but also in the passing game to the running backs. I mean, there was, Baxter with that big catch from the sideline late in that game that was on that final drive that kept them going. And so I think there's some potential there through the air with the running backs. But, yeah, I mean, the run game was something that Texas looked like they were going to be able to lean on and really utilize early on, and then got away from it for a couple of different reasons. But I think that's obviously Michigan's bread and butter, and they're not going to say, we're getting in the passing game here.
No, I mean,
they're going to try and run it down Washington's throat, and I think they're going to be able to have some success doing that, because I don't think Washington's going to shut that down, just like they didn't shut that down against Texas. So, yeah, that is where I do see a favorable matchup for Michigan. Now, Washington's got some really good players on defense, and I think that they're going to make Michigan have to work for it, of course. But I do think that Michigan will be able to run the football pretty effectively, and to what degree, I think will be one of the top 2 to 3 storylines in this football game, absolutely, because if you turn it into where J.J. McCarthy's suddenly having to go in a shootout ball, well, I'll give Washington the edge in that type of a game 10 times out of 10. So, yeah, Michigan's going to want to play their style of football to the best of their ability, and that will be running the rock with Blake Corum and the rest of that cast. So, yeah, that's a big one, and I do give Michigan the edge there. I think they're going to be able to run the football.
Both teams have field goal kickers that seem to be very reliable. Washington ended up kicking a lot of field goals in that game against Texas, and in some cases I thought it would come back to haunt them, because the field goals are usually not going to beat a team that scores like UT.
Well, Texas, when Steve Sarkisian, he scripts out the plays longer than almost any coach in football. I mean, he likes to, most coaches script out like the first drive, maybe 2 drives. He likes to go really deep. And
did I hear the number 40?
Yeah, he'll script it out to maybe 40 plays.
I heard somebody, and I don't remember who it was, said that last week that he had gone above and beyond his typical. It was some Texas podcast that he had scripted like 40 or something plays right out of the gates, which was odd, but that's what he did, in that last game.
I always wonder, so you recover a fumble at your opponent's 5 on the kick return, and your first play is a deep ball down the middle, and you're at the 5-yard line. Do you kind of offset that?
Yeah, you do.
Might switch around
Sometimes you do, but I do think that maybe last week what got him, because he did have his deeper script, that he was like, well, I'm not going to go off it yet. And it's not like Washington was running away with the game either to make you think at a point like, well, I need to change this, because the things that were happening were not things that were really necessarily a problem with the script. It was things that, would be unscripted anyway. So, but I do think that maybe got him in that, he was like, okay, we're going to do this. And then when you're behind in the second half, also the natural reaction is to not run the ball as much. Mm-hmm. And they were at times where they really wouldn't behoove them to do it because of the time. But they probably should have leaned to it harder. And the thing that Washington will have to deal with is at no point, like you guys said, is Michigan going to go, well, this wasn't the plan. I mean, their plan is always to run the ball.
You would think that this comes down. Michigan runs the ball, they probably win, even though Washington can score a lot of points. If they can put up 150 to 200 yards rushing, which is a lot, and that's not giving Washington defense enough credit, but they did give up some gaping yardage to Texas. And I saw that against Oregon and a few other teams too. So that will be fun to kind of watch.
Yeah, I think special teams. I mean, after what we saw from Michigan last time around, I mean, that got very dicey for them and nearly cost them against Alabama. So special teams, I think, is often overlooked. But in this case, especially what we got to see here recently, that's something that you really focus in on with Michigan and say, okay, they've got to clean that up. They had problems on punts. They had problems on field goals. They had problems with the extra points. So if they don't get that right, then that's where you could see, missed field goal suddenly turns into an avalanche of like, oh, dear God, because then Washington scores quick. And then, and that's
down
the thing
10, not just 4 or whatever.
Now you're trying to run the football. How much time's left? What's the clock look like? Those types of things. So, we don't really have a great feel until we get into this game of how it's going to start off. But, I mean, Michigan's going to run the football and get to Michael Penix, and Washington's going to want to hit big plays with their wide receivers and try to get something out of that run game, of course, but then also stop the run on their side of things as well. So it's going to be a great game, in my opinion. Last year, you kind of went into it and you weren't really positive of how TCU would hold up against Georgia, and obviously we saw pretty quickly how that went after about a quarter. But I think tonight we should be in for a much more tantalizing type of national championship matchup to close out the year.
If they're any as good as either one of the endings, the drama in the semifinals, my goodness, we're all going to not be able to sleep tonight. One way or the other, we'd be like this. We'd be wired like we had a bunch of caffeine right before we try to go to bed.
And I know that's not saying much compared to last year's game when it was about a quarter before everybody was like, all right, this one's pretty much over. But I just think in general we're in for a really fun night, and it's going to be a very deserving champion, although I know with Michigan there will always be that segment that, put an asterisk or whatever. Been plenty of those articles written, but, you go out and win the games in front of you, and they've been doing that up until this point. Both teams have, and so I'm excited to see who gets their final win and gets that national championship, and then who takes their first loss of the year.
I have one NCAA piece of news we're going to get to in a moment. The AFCA convention has also begun, which is a massive coaches convention where a lot of people are looking for jobs, a lot of people are looking to hire, and a lot of legislation can be at least discussed among coaches. The AFCA main headquarters is right here in Waco, Texas, just off the campus at Baylor. But Ross Dellinger, of course, has been discussing this, and so have many national writers. The thought about the 12-team playoff, we can get through the first or final 14 playoff, but the 5+7 model was not adopted, at least today. But as he was mentioning Mark Keenum, the college football chair, would be shocked if that is not eventually approved for 2024. 5 automatic qualifiers to the highest-ranked champions and 7 at-large to the next highest-ranked teams. The top 4 champs would get first-round byes. That would be starting next year in December.
Yeah, Yeah, I think they'll do that. Plus, it's only going to make it that much easier for the Power 2 to get to where they want to be.
So why would they do it?
Yeah.
Why would everybody just go on board with that?
They just. I mean, what's the other alternative?
So
not go on board with that and to keep it more of a fair and open playing field as much as you can versus just handing them what they want, basically.
The threat of eventually them separating or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would think that's the only. Here's my hope. They sure do meet a lot. It's almost like there's a lot of meetings, and a lot of people love meetings. They love to go to meetings. It doesn't seem like this should take that long. You have everybody together either in Houston or Nashville or wherever. And I don't understand why even just get it done. Move on.
Well, because there's politics at play, guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure,
there's a whole Pac-12 conference that just has two teams that's sitting there flipping in the wind over whether or not they're going to have a playoff spot. I mean, that's enough reason to not want to be it. And if you look into it, it's Kirk Schultz is the one that delayed it today. Kirk Schultz of Washington State, of the Pac-2, of the Pac-12, however you want to refer to it. He's the one that asked, according to Ross Dellinger, for the board to delay the vote on a 5+7 format. But again, CFP Chair Mark Keenum expects the CFP to adopt the 5+7 over the next 2 to 3 weeks. You can expect all you want to, but that sounds like you're trying to talk it into existence versus that being a guarantee.
It does
and
need to be unanimous, right?
Yeah, and so if you're Kirk Schultz, again, I ask you, why are you going through with this? Unless you are being threatened with, well, if you don't do this, then down the line when there's a renegotiation.
That's why I say what's the alternative?
Yeah.
Because you can fight the man only so long before the man gets you. And the other part of this,
by the way, I'm not against Kirk Schultz fighting for his
absolutely.
to his school in Oregon State.
But part of this also is in the 5+7 as opposed to the 6+6. You're also asking the two conferences, the Big 12 and the ACC, to say yes, we're fine with the Mountain West and the Sun Belt getting a team in.
And not a
when I don't think that's how they necessarily feel either.
So you think the ACC is going to put themselves in that position after this year?
Yeah, I mean, but
there's no way.
No, but that's the thing is, everybody's going to try to do the best thing to try to get more than just their automatic qualifier in, and the 6+6. Especially for the Big 12 and ACC, doesn't do that, because if you have to give one to the Sun Belt champion, then that's definitely not one that you're getting, because then it'll be back into the concern of, well, it's just going to be the SEC and Big 10 with those at-large berths past our champion anyway.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you have a non-SEC Big Ten guaranteed though through that other route versus going the other direction where you have one less?
You would, but you would have one less. But are you going to sacrifice one less of you for one less of them, or are you going to roll the dice that you can get one more of you? That's where the Bob Bowlesby, I'm going to try to get two teams in this thing logic that everyone kind of has. Right. Like we're going to try to sift through this and go, okay, well, if it's 5+7, then we have a better chance of getting two ACC teams in than it's 6+6, because we're now automatically giving away one of our tickets right then, as opposed to, well, if Florida State and Clemson are both really good, they're going to take those two, and when that's not necessarily the case either.
Yeah, I just think that you're Kirk Schultz, and you're going to do whatever you can to keep the Pac-2 alive until whatever it is your master plan is that you're trying to figure out, if that's the Pac adding 10 teams this offseason or in the next couple of years, or if that's eventually fizzling into whatever you're going to be, and then we get to the point where there is just the Power 4 officially. But until there's not, it's still the Power 5. So I don't think you relinquish that voting power or that ability to disrupt things until you get some assurances on the other side of, like, you're going to be taken care of, you're going to be in a good spot. Oregon State and Washington State aren't just going to vote for this, give the SEC and Big Ten what they want and the others what they want, and then just fade to the wayside, right? So I think you've got to look out for yourself right now, and that's what they're doing. And, there's all this talk about, I'm sure you've seen the always somehow filled in, like, who's the West Virginia leak? Is what I want to know. Who's always telling the West Virginia Twitter guy, MH Ver, or whatever other incarnations? Because there's been other, I feel like, West Virginia. But who's the leak for like the last 2 decades out of Morgantown, West Virginia?
Maybe it's E. Gordon.
Maybe it's E. Gordon.
He hadn't been there that long, but yeah.
Maybe it is, but somehow that particular school has like the leakiest drip when it comes to...
Maybe there's not really a leak.
Or maybe not. It's intentional. It's whatever it is.
Just sounds like something good to discuss, and I'm not referring to anyone in particular. But
if you go off of like the rumblings, via, that, for example, or just the talk in general of how all the different ways this can go. I'm sure you all have seen the discussion about the alliance, the new alliance, the Big 12, the ACC, and so if you believe in that, and you think that that's in the works, then maybe that's part of this disruption here is like what's going on behind the scenes. But if you're Kirk Schultz, then yeah, you're certainly not just rushing into this. I'm sure you want some assurances, and who knows what's going on behind the scenes, guys, because Brett Yormark and the Big 12 have to know that they're not just safe and sound for forever and ever.
Yeah. No, always have to have their back. Always have to watch their back.
I tell you what, of all the expansion candidates, like, who's to say that Kansas isn't right at the top of the list if the Big 10 wants to go, grab another edition, or West Virginia, or, some of these schools who have, the things characteristics that maybe would put them in a light where you'd want to have them in one of those top 2 conferences, so to speak. So realignment's not done, and you just wonder kind of what the maneuvering is going on behind the scenes. So that's why I think today is interesting. If you want to buy into all the various rumors that go out there, it does make it spicier. I don't know if that's the case in alliance or things like that, but I mean, there's obviously still some discussions going on, and they're not just going to push this thing through for the sake of it.
We are not done talking college football. The game tonight, there's transfer portal news. There are players who have entered the NFL draft, some of them that affect Texas fans, and we have a lot of you that are in the chat room. Not unexpected either, but we'll get to a lot of that, plus some more. Including crazy news that thought you'd never see involving Nike and also Tiger Woods. When we come back, she's in Houston. She was just at a Michigan event. Angelique Chengelis, the Detroit News, but also she is going to be followed by Dave Softy Mahler, who's KJR in Seattle. This is 365 Sports.
During the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco, get incredible deals on our entire inventory selection of new Ram trucks, Jeeps, SUVs, Chrysler sedans, or sporty Dodge. Shop in-store or online today and drive into 2024 with confidence and excitement.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit Free Press is with us, and she has been our go-to when we discuss Michigan in many ways, mainly, of course, about football. She joins us with Craig and Paul, David Smoak on 365 Sports. I know you're on a bus back to the or to your hotel, and eventually the game tonight. Angelique, what's been the atmosphere? Is Michigan, have they taken over Houston?
Actually, I'm on the bus heading to the stadium. I can see it right now. But it definitely feels like a very strong presence from the Michigan fans. And I'm even getting messages from relatives in different parts of the country that they're seeing, people wearing Michigan apparel everywhere. So it's obviously focused here, but I think that, this is an enormous alumni base, and I think that they are awfully proud of where this team is right now.
Matchup-wise, this is something that they haven't exactly seen this year, as far as quarterback plus wide receivers at this talent level. But they hadn't seen a quarterback that moves like Jalen Milroe, and they absolutely kept him completely in check just a week ago at the Rose Bowl. How do you think they adjust to those wide receivers and Michael Penix tonight, which is a question that's eluded almost everybody that Washington has played this year?
Yeah, no, that's I think the difference going into the Alabama game is they had a month to prepare for that game and Jalen Milroe. And talking to Jesse Minter, Michigan's defensive coordinator, they certainly knew the other two teams who they could potentially play in this game. So they've been studying Washington and talking to Minter and talking to most of the defensive players. They think Penix reminds them a lot of TJ Stroud, and a guy that, at Ohio State, who they had some success against the last couple seasons. So, they understand that he is the best quarterback they've faced. And, talking to the defensive, particularly the front seven guys, they understand that they got to get pressure on him. He's not been sacked much this year. They want to disrupt him. And that's their game plan going in. And I think really the key to the game plan is Michigan's running game and eating the clock and bleeding the clock and keeping Penix off the field as much as possible to make it a little bit easier for the defense facing Penix and his receivers.
Angelique, how did what happened earlier in the year, all the off-the-field stuff, obviously Harbaugh served a suspension, he comes back, but has that continued to hover, or is that kind of dissipated as they've been on this run towards tonight?
Oh, no, there have been questions about it. I mean, there were questions, like the last question at the head coaches press conference before the Rose Bowl, someone asking Nick Saban about how they were going to approach it going into the game with the sign stealing. And, it was interesting talking to several of the former Michigan players who were on the 97 team. They were sort of like, thank you for all this disruption, because they feel like it really, truly has galvanized this team. And I'll tell you, I mean, I don't think they've been insulated. These guys are on social media now with all their NIL stuff. They're on all the platforms all the time. They see all the talk about Michigan and sign stealing and even the earlier NCAA investigation that's still hovering. And they've just ignored it. And it's something that they've really been able to tune out the noise, and it's gotten them this far.
What does that say about them as a team? You mentioned the word galvanized. That's a perfect word that they have done that, where some would have, I don't know about crumbled, but they would have been affected, distracted. Yeah. All it takes is one bad game.
I really think it goes to this leadership, and going back to last December and early January, when a lot of these seniors and captains on this team, like Trevor Keegan, Zach Zinner, who's hurt, obviously, was focused against Ohio State, Blake Corum. I mean, they've got tremendous leadership, and I don't mean to not mention Mike Sainristil. I mean, I think he's the glue of the defense and probably the glue for this team. And they've just, you get to sort of roll your eyes every time Harbaugh says one-track mind, but that is how they've approached this.
Angelique, the Washington defense is pretty susceptible to the run. Mm-hmm. This kind of works out for Michigan, but do you think that we might see, maybe just because they expect that we might see maybe more of J.J. McCarthy, or does this work out perfectly for Sharon Moore, where he can just go, look, we're going to run it until they stop it?
No, I really think they run it till they stop. I mean, I think that they really have to dominate the clock and to keep Penix off the field, as I mentioned. And I think, there's Blake Corum, but I think you're going to see Kalel Malling, a guy who was a linebacker a couple years ago and has converted to running back and is a really tough runner. and Donovan Edwards. Everybody's been waiting for this breakout from him. So, they've got options in the backfield. And last but not least, you mentioned JJ throwing. I mean, he throws off defense coordinators with his ability to run. So I think he will be critical too.
Angelique, what's it just like for Michigan to be in this spot after so long? I mean, forget even like the drama of this year and all that, but just the first time in so many years to have finally gotten over that playoff hump and then now to be in this position. Just what kind of does it mean for the Michigan fan base overall?
Well, I mean, they've been starved, and that was a word that a lot of the 97 guys, the last time Michigan won the AP National Championship, that they've talked about it. And, pardon me, a lot of those guys were saying from those teams, and even other former players I've talked to, it's like, it's not like they stopped caring about the program, but they were less invigorated about it. Now they're all wearing their shirts again, and Michigan versus everybody. And I think it's just really re-energized the football, the program, but also the fan base. I mean, I haven't seen it like this in a long, long time.
Angelique, I know you're getting that nice escort from the police department to the stadium. Last thing, is Jim Harbaugh coaching his last game in Ann Arbor?
Wow, I mean, I really waffle on that. I think that there's a big part of him that loves Michigan and wants to be back, but I think if he gets an offer, he can't refuse something that's just dynamic from an NFL team, maybe where he has a lot of control. I think that's something he has to entertain. I mean, he wants to win a Super Bowl, but I think this team has really. He's called them. He's said many times they're on a happy mission and they're happy warriors, and I think he has really enjoyed it. So I could see either way. I really could. I don't mean to waffle, but I could see it going either way.
Thank you. Enjoy the night. Thank you so much, Angelique, giving us that time when she's on the bus, the media bus from where she's staying to NRG tonight in Houston.
How would you feel about Commanders head coach Jim Harbaugh?
He's been good. He was good with the 49ers.
Y'all haven't even considered that, have you?
I have
I
not.
wouldn't mind it. I mean,
he was good at Stanford. Been good at Michigan. I'm not a big fan of sometimes, but here's one of the things. I was watching Washington and Dallas yesterday, and it was exactly what I thought it would be. And I think, Paul, I told you it would be 38-8 or something.
Glorified exhibition.
You said 36-8. It was 38-10. So
all right, I kind of know both of them, but
Well, we know McCarthy was trying to run it up as much as possible. Like, I don't know what the hell he was doing late in that game.
Yeah.
They're up 4 scores.
But
he's got 10 minutes left, and Dak's out there swinging it around. It's
well,
like, what are
maybe
you
trying
doing?
to win an MVP or something.
I guess so, yeah.
So here's there was one moment in that game when former Texas offensive lineman Sam Cosmi got tied up with Micah Parsons, who is frustrated because he seems like he's getting held on every play. But it was like a very short little. It wasn't even a scuffle, but they kind of got tied up, like two deers where their antlers get hooked into each other. I love that Cosme even actually showed some emotion because I watched them play. They suck. But this is Washington, Dallas, even though not the same as George Allen against Tom Landry. But maybe Harbaugh brings something to that franchise that they miss, which is an edge.
I was reading an article about Eric Bieniemy today because, it's that time of year where Eric Bieniemy doesn't get a head coaching job again. Right. And now I'm starting to maybe kind of understand it a little bit more because the way that the Washington players talked about it was, Sam Cosmi was like, well, I wish we would have run the ball more. Ryan Robinson is very, very good.
Yeah.
He's a very good player. And it doesn't seem like they feature him a whole lot in that offense because that's not what they did in Kansas City, because in Kansas City, they have some dude.
They have an alpha.
They have him. So they don't really have to worry about that as much. And then Logan Thomas, the tight end, was like, yeah, we had our ups and downs with Eric Bieniemy. Was very honest with it because maybe I'm the only one who's going to say this, but he was like nothing against the guy, but we had our ups and downs. So,
he also didn't have the dude.
But the fact that they said, like, you got players coming out and saying it, and not what I would call nobody got me the ball enough way of just a very matter-of-factly, this is how we feel about it. And I think with maybe Josh Harris there, they feel this is the time that they can finally say something where their opinion matters.
Yeah.
Because with Daniel Snyder, no one's opinion mattered but his.
One note about Josh Harris and the ownership group, and they did hire an NBA executive to help this search along with the former Lions, who am I thinking about? former Lions linebacker, that Chris Spillman, who's going to help run their search for a new, I guess you could say, football operations guy. They even now, Paul, listen to this. I heard this, that the food at the stadium is now warm and good in Washington or wherever it's located, and that some of the angles of where the media has to sit to watch the game, there's certain things they've done to the scoreboard that make it much more manageable, like friendly for the media. Not that means you're going to win football games, but it's a start.
Yeah, I think that was a really embarrassing chapter of Cowboys and Commanders yesterday, to where it was just so one-sided. And, it took Dallas a little bit of time to pull away. But then by the end, it was just Mike McCarthy basically trying to run up the score. I mean, is it really what it was? Yeah, if y'all listen to the radio broadcast, Brad Sham is screaming of like, can somebody get me I'm not kidding. He's like, I don't know if it's possible, but if there's a way to get a direct line, somebody get on there to Mike McCarthy and tell him to get Dak and CD and all these guys out of the game. Because there's like less than 10 minutes left. They're up 4 scores, and he's still sitting there just like tossed to CD. And, I mean, maybe they're trying to get some things taken care of in their contract bonuses or something you needed one more pass to get the $200,000 extra or whatever. I don't know. Maybe they just smashing it on Washington while they can because it's a fun to beat up.
They could have done that by running the ball too.
Yeah, it's fun to beat up on your rival, but regardless, it was nice to just see that come to a close. One, because it wasn't all that competitive for most of it, but two, just because it brings to a close a chapter of Washington football that is very forgettable and that not many people will ever want to look back on, or certainly will never cherish. This run of Daniel Snyder's, which had little brief moments here and there that were great, but were quickly, had a bucket of water thrown on them as fast as they erupted into a flame. And so that's all over now. He's gone. The whole season of you kind of like we're halfway in, halfway out with the ownership change. That's done. And they can go do whatever. Change the name, change the uniforms, change the roster,
get a new
change
stadium,
the coaches, change the stadium. They need to basically do like almost all of that. And
they need
now
Chip
they can
and
do
Joanna
that.
to go and have one of those.
I don't know about all that, but I mean, they do need an extreme makeover, whatever that's going to look like from top to bottom, and whether they're the Commanders still or whatever they want to be known as. I mean, they've got to change that from the roots up, and they got to change that in every imaginable way. It's not just a coat of paint or a different decal. It's everything imaginable. And so Magic Johnson and Josh Harris and all those guys in charge are busy at that. And I just bring up the Harbaugh thing, not because that's based on anything, but just the fact that that's a question, and they're on the search along with other teams. I was just curious of what y'all's thoughts would be there.
I've seen those shows when they go in and they do want to move houses or move walls or whatever, and they dig into the floor and there's rot.
Yeah,
that's who they are.
They've got it. And look, they're about to change everything. I think Jim Harbaugh would be great. I don't know if he, again, like Josh Harris did this with the Sixers, where look, he tore it down to the rivets and he let them kind of languish for a little while to get it to where it was.
Yeah, wasn't their first year like 9-73?
Yeah, and look, they've yet to win a title, but they're also now regular contenders. So
with a fantastic centerpiece. Who's the face of the franchise in Joel Embiid.
Yeah, and so now he's got the opportunity to either get Drake May or Caleb Williams, which should work out well.
Where's Caleb Williams originally from?
He's from the DMV. Yeah. So that's they need to. By the way, yesterday watching the game with Amanda, CeeDee Lamb scored a touchdown, and she's like, that is loud cheers for him.
Oh, no, they had a bunch of people.
I said, look, since Daniel Snyder spent all this time wrecking the team, people aren't going as much, so there's plenty of available tickets for Cowboy fans.
Yeah. All right, when we come back, Dave Softy Mahler from KJR in Seattle, he'll join us. Matt Brown, Extra Points, will join us in the 4 o'clock hour. And Ashton Hawkins, who committed to Baylor, he's the Texas State wide receiver who haunted them a few times. He will join us around 4:45. And then, of course, we have the top 5 to close out the show. I had my computer set up on my laptop here. I went to start it. It says there is no hard drive. So I'm about to leave for a minute. We have the Softy interview is recorded, and head to go see if I can drop off my laptop, because without it, I don't know if I can breathe. But we'll have that. So that's what's coming up next. We appreciate you, 365 Sports.
I'll tell you how many times that I've had to do, how many repairs you've had to do on your computer with this one right here.
I'm ready to walk in the door and say, change everything over to a Mac, and I'll figure it out. If, in fact, they can find whatever's in my laptop.
I have faith in you. You're a brave little boy. You can do it.
Yeah.
What's more traumatizing, your laptop stops working or you lose your cell phone?
I'd say cell phone.
I think so, because it's got even more of your life in it. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. So first hour, it's great to be back. We're not done. We got a lot to get to. A championship game tonight, and this is 365 Sports.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Dave, Softy Mahler, KJR Radio in Seattle. It's National Championship Game Day, NRG in Houston. Softy flew into Texas on Sunday and now just hours away from kickoff. What's the vibe, Softy, when it comes to the Huskies in Michigan? The game is finally here. Sometimes it just seems like it takes forever to get to the kickoff.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking about that, Dave, with a buddy of mine, that when the Seahawks are in the Super Bowl and you have the extra week with the bye, you really need the extra week to get yourself situated and get ready. And there was a big part of me that was kind of hoping that we would have an extra week to kind of soak this up and enjoy it. Now I just want to get the damn thing over with, right, and just be done with it, because I cannot wait until 6:45 tonight to get this game kicked off, man. It's the biggest game in Washington football history. I mean, outside of Georgia or Alabama or maybe Ohio State or Clemson, what program would not play in a game like this and say it was the biggest game they've ever played? So I'm ready for tonight. Lots of purple and gold. Lots of Husky fans have made the trip down here. Let's rock and roll, baby. Come on.
How ironic, and I just thought about this earlier today, that they're playing Michigan, who they beat when they won the national championship after the 91 season.
Yeah, 34-14, 92 Rose Bowl. Billy Joe Hobart, Mario Bailey, who works with me now, by the way. He's on our pregame, postgame show, who did the famous Heisman pose in the end zone, kind of mocking Desmond Howard that day in Pasadena. So there's a lot of history, guys, between UW and Michigan when it comes to Washington and the Wolverines and the Big Ten, the Pac-12, going back to the 78 Rose Bowl with Warren Moon, the 2001 game with 12 men on the field, and the Huskies lost that game in Ann Arbor, beat them in 2002 back in Seattle, got their ass kicked 2 years ago in Ann Arbor when they ran for 300 yards on them, and Cade McNamara barely threw the ball, and it didn't matter because the Wolverines just bludgeoned the Huskies to death that day. And that kind of is the amazing thing, Dave, is you think about where this program was 2 years ago, getting crushed by the same Michigan football team, and now 2 years later playing that same team for the national championship. It is amazing.
Yeah, and both teams, obviously with Penix and all the attention he gets with the passing game, but Washington's offensive line, the Joe Moore Award winners, Michigan likes to grind people in the dust. Man, is this a bully fight tonight in some ways?
I think it is, and I think Washington can play that kind of game. There's a lot of people, for some reason, that don't think that Washington can play that kind of game. And frankly, I don't get it. I think it's being lazy. I think Booger McFarland is lazy. I think he's an idiot, to be honest with you. Keeps talking about big boy football. Now he's doing it, I think, just to piss people off and just stir the pot, Dave, to be honest with you. But Washington played big boy football against Oregon State. They played big boy football against Utah. They did it against Sweat and Murphy last week in the Sugar Bowl, for God's sakes, and did it twice against Oregon. So I don't know where that comes from. I mean, this might be a different brand of big boy football tonight that we'll see in Michigan. But I thought UW, against a really good Texas defensive line, held their own. Michael Penix was not sacked. He was not hit in that game last week against Sweat and Murphy. So I like their chances tonight against Michigan, man.
Could it then come down to who dictates the pace of the game?
Absolutely. I think if Washington gets up early and forces J.J. McCarthy to throw the football, that's not what Michigan wants to do at all. They want to grind it out with Blake Corum, man. You guys know that. Look, no disrespect to Roman Wilson or anybody else on that football team, but they don't have the wide receivers that Washington has. And frankly, I don't think they have the wide receivers that Texas has with Mitchell and Worthy and even Sanders, the tight end. I don't think Michigan has those types of weapons on the outside. So if Washington can force Michigan to throw the football, maybe get a break on a punt or a kickoff return or even an interception or a turnover and go up 14 points or 10 points in this game, we'll see if Jim Harbaugh decides to kind of, press the issue and start to throw the ball when they're down double-digit points. And that's one of the other kind of great, I think, angles on this game tonight, Smokey, is that there's a great history between Seattle and Jim Harbaugh going back to his days with the 49ers. And here we are yet again with a chance to get Jim Harbaugh in a big game on the national stage, just like they did in 2013 in the NFC Championship game.
What is your own gut instinct on Harbaugh's future? Is this his last game at Michigan, you think?
I think it is, yeah. I think Jim Harbaugh's sick and tired of college football. He's sick and tired of the NCAA. I think there's too much allure to the NFL. Coaches work a lot less in the NFL than they do in college football. The only thing that would keep Harbaugh at Michigan is because it's Michigan, right? So I think Jim Harbaugh has been longing to get back to the NFL. There's too many good jobs open right now with too many good quarterbacks, like the situation in Carolina with Bryce Young and the situation with Justin Herbert in L.A. I think it is his last game in college football, and I wonder how the Wolverines play for him, by the way.
What was the reaction with Kalen DeBoer was hired, and what is he thought of now with what he's done in such a short amount of time?
I think it's been unbelievable, Dave. I mean, nobody could have seen this coming with him. They were 4-8 2 years ago. They lost the Apple Cup. They got hammered by Washington State. Jaden DeLora was planting the flag on the 50-yard line. He's since transferred to his second school since then, by the way. But here we are 2 years later after going 4-8, and Kalen DeBoer is sitting here at Washington, and he's 25-2 in 27 games. I mean, nobody could have seen this coming. Not even him. Not even Jen Cohen, who hired him, could have seen this kind of asinine turnaround. But you know what? It just goes to show you that Washington's roster was never that bad to begin with because Roma Dunze was there. Jalen McMillan was there. Braylon Trice and Zion Tupuola-Fatui, Troy Fatano, your starting left tackle. All those guys were there. A lot of them brought in by Jimmy Lake, by the way. So this turnaround by Kalen DeBoer that he's pulled off here in 2 years, and with the way they've been winning games, Dave, every freaking game feels like the Super Bowl with these guys. Every single game feels like the game of the year, and every game has a play of the year or 5. I don't know if we'll ever see this type of season ever again in Husky football history.
How much does the experience, they have a lot of guys that are gristly, 4, 5, 6-year players. It's part of college football today. How much do you think that's allowed them to make this run in 2023?
I think it's been gigantic, man. I mean, you got a bunch of 6-year players on this football team that have been around for a long time and seen the bottom of the barrel. They're all pissed off. They're angry. You know, all these guys last year when they announced on social media that they were coming back, they did it together. Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, Braylon Trice, Zion Tupuola-Fatui, all of them announcing together that we are coming back for one more year. But this is why they came back, right? This is exactly why they came back, to be in this situation tonight.
Dave, Softy Mahler, KJR Seattle with us. What would this mean? Don James was the coach in 91. He's passed on. Empman was the big name on that team. What will this mean to the University of Washington hierarchy, former players, and just the tradition of the program?
Well, it's funny. You talk to guys like Mario Bailey, who was on that 91 team, and you start bringing up the idea that this team might be better than the 91 team, and he starts getting pissed off, right? Starts getting mad at you. You know, that team would kick this team's ass. And look, there's no doubt that you can argue the 91 team was a better team, but this would be a better accomplishment, right? I mean, going 15-0 and being the undisputed national champion versus 12-0, there's just no comparison, right? I mean, that team did not have to run through the gauntlet that this team had to run through, man. So this would be the greatest accomplishment in the history of Washington football. And for people like me that are big Seahawks fans and big Mariner fans, but just bigger Husky fans, it'd be the greatest thing I ever saw. I'm 50 years old, Dave, and if they can pull this off tonight, it'd be the best thing, the greatest thing I've ever seen as a sports fan in my life. It'd be one of the greatest days of my life if they can get this done tonight.
They play with their foot a little bit. They almost threw it up, choked on it against Texas at the end of that game. Do they learn from that, or is that just who they are?
Well, I just think if you go back to the Texas game, really what happened there, they tried to run the clock out with Dylan Johnson, their best running back, and he got banged up, and they couldn't get the 10 yards they needed. They got the 10 yards they needed the week before or a month earlier in the Pac-12 championship against Vegas, but could not do it that day against the Texas Longhorns. So I don't have any problem with what they were doing that night schematically. They just somehow, some reason, every game find a way to be in a fight in the fourth quarter. So how about this? How about they kick somebody's ass? How about they blow somebody out for the first time this year and give us all a freaking break? Because I'm not sure if my heart can take one more of those games, Dave.
Welcome back to Texas, Softy. Good luck tonight. Enjoy the memories. I hope they're good for you. Thanks for your time as always.
Okay, bud. Take care. See you. Go Dogs.
Softy Mahler, KJR Seattle, 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and you know, I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
To
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Hopefully, Smokey will be back quickly. He had a computer emergency that he had to go get solved, and hopefully this answer is to get it at Mac. But that's just me and Craig. Matt Brown, publisher of Extra Points, joins us now. And by the way, guys, the irony of having the dude who's the best at writing about NIL and all the things that go into NIL and the changing world of college athletics right out of GXG, our sponsor, who's an NIL collective, is not lost on me. I did think that was kind of strange. But Matt, there you go. Like, in the brave new world of college athletics, here you are on a podcast that has NIL as a sponsor.
You are not the first time this has happened. Honestly, when I was listening to the ad read coming in here, I'm like, well, that's pretty good. It sure beats somebody playing Fat Bottom Girls before I come up again or something, right? Or making some kind of quip about my gym performance. No, it would make sense for me to come on after talking about NIL.
Matt, this is the last night of the Pac-12 football-wise, and they could end it literally winning the title from their deathbed. How, as someone who likes to take the 30,000-foot view of college athletics, do you view that very strange possibility that could happen tonight?
It's funny. I have thought about this, and it is this terrible irony that the last season of the Pac-12 was its best and deepest in at least 15 years. It was one of the most exciting. It had the highest Q score, and if maybe just a couple of university presidents had done something slightly differently over an 8-month period, we're talking about it catapulting into a new era rather than being picked apart for parts. This would be very fitting, I think, for Washington to win this on not just the last day of the Pac-12, but really the last day of the college football, I think, as we know it right now. Because next year, brothers, this is a conference game, and we have to kind of wrap our minds around nationalized conferences and a Big Two, Little Two, this expanded playoff, a very different world. I think it would be fitting if things get sent off here with the last hurrah of the Pac-12.
Matt,
and not just because I'm from Columbus.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there you go. There's extra reasoning there. But, Matt, if it doesn't work out that way and folks in Columbus don't get their wish, then you got a team whose head coach was suspended this year, who's had this off-the-field drama going on for the last several months, and that's somewhat simmered down, although it still perks its head up from time to time. Just your thoughts on Michigan's ride to the championship game tonight, all that's taken place, and what kind of a taste do you think that leaves an administrator and greater college football world's mouth if Michigan, the team that was the big fat cheaters and this and that, is the one hoisting the trophy at the end of this whole thing?
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some people that are going to, roll their eyes at it or be upset about it. But for everything that Michigan is accused of doing, and they probably are responsible for much of that, the idea that we've had pristine national champions or over the last decade is of course ridiculous, right? I mean, we saw this a little bit with the Auburn Cam Newton situation. We've seen this with several other teams that were not closely following the NCAA's amateurism guidelines over the past 150 years of national championships. What makes this, I think, different is that Michigan isn't being accused of recruiting cheating. They're not being accused of academic cheating or standard boilerplate cheating. It's a very unprecedented, weird, unique kind of cheating, and one where it's even a little bit nebulous to show what kind of advantage they got. And in the most Michigan way possible, there's a ton of lawyers, and it's Byzantine and difficult to follow. And a lot of this, I think, kind of becomes moot because there's a good chance, not a certain chance because we're talking about Jim Harbaugh, but there's a good chance this is his last game coaching. He's brought on a new agent. He's going to look at NFL opportunities. This is a very senior-laden team, a very experienced team that's going to lose over a dozen guys to the NFL draft. Whatever NCAA sanctions happen, if they're still in NCAA when it's time to pass these things out, they'll happen. But the people responsible for this team aren't going to be in Ann Arbor, I think, when it does.
Matt, one of the other pieces of news that came out today is they've kicked the can down the road on the 5+7 model. Apparently at the request of Kirk Schultz in Washington State, because they're trying to get their ducks in a row. It is an interesting debate for the ACC and Big 12, in my opinion, to get on the side of 5+7 or stay on 6+6, because if you do 6+6, then you're guaranteeing one less SEC or Big 10 spot, but you're also giving up a spot for yourself that could be an at-large bid. So where do you think that those schools, especially the ACC and Big 12, will fall on this in what will probably be a years-long battle against those other two conferences to make sure that there's fair representation in the postseason?
That is, honestly, I'd never really thought about it that way. And that is an interesting question. My understanding, and I haven't had a chance to read everything that Ross put out today, but my understanding was that it's expected that this eventually ends with a 7+5 kind of situation, or four automatic bids or 5 automatic bids rather than 6, and it's just a legal process or a bureaucratic process with Wazoo trying to extract as much leverage as they possibly can. But I think, and I'm open to being talked out of this by you guys, but I think if you're a Big 12 team, you want as many at-large bids as possible. It's going to be difficult, I think, in this new world here for ACC and Big 12 teams to compete for oxygen against the Big 10 and the SEC for automatic bids. I mean, looking at the playoff this year, I think if we go to a 12-team model, I don't think anybody in the Big 12 gets one of those spots. You got to go a little bit farther down to get to Arizona to get into that neighborhood. And as conference schedules expand, it may be harder for Big 12 teams to get enough quality games and have to move kind of uphill for that. So I think you want to preserve as many at-large bids as you possibly can, hoping that in a good year you can get 2 and maybe a third one, rather than trying to make the playoff field a little bit easier for your championship by kicking in a Sun Belt team. I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I think about it at first blush.
Matt, how have you sort of digested all of the Florida State's ACC noise here over the last few weeks as that's continued to develop?
It's been tough to handle. It's been a tough story to kind of track. What I can tell you guys is that, on my to-do list, I did take a little bit of time off for Christmas. But one of the stories that I really want to do soon with real reporting is to tackle the private equity angle. And I want people to understand why Florida State would need or would want to go after private equity to raise this kind of money. And then more importantly, the risks and the what comes with taking that. Because it's a very different model than just going to a bank and getting a loan or trying to raise it with private fundraising, which I feel very confident is not possible for anybody here. When I've talked to a couple of high-level ACC staffers, I've talked to a few other high-level people at individual schools, and I don't think anything's really changed over the last month. If there was a very easy, foolproof way for this to be addressed in the court system, it would have already happened. And now it's a lot of lawyering. It's trying to figure out, okay, can we get the case moved to a geography that's more favorable to us? What parts of these terms can we strike? And what does this mean for the league as a whole? I think it's better for college sports if the ACC wins. And if Florida State is able to do this, or if they're able to get private equity financing, to get JP Morgan or the Saudis or somebody else to buy them out, I would be concerned about what that not only means for the ACC, but for a lot of teams like Baylor or in the Big 12 that are going to find their neighborhood suddenly much less stable.
Well, Matt, the thing that, if you go and you take the loan out, like you said, and you get that money or you raise it, then it's your money. But if you go and do that with a private equity firm, then JP Morgan or the Saudis are your boss. And then
that's exactly it.
That changes everything, because now you have to kind of let them do what they want as opposed to what you want, and you just hope your situation is they're giving me money to let me do what I want and they're going to stay out of the way. But that's for that kind of money, that's rare.
That's generally not how things work, right? And here's the thing: you're probably not going to be able, based on what I've been hearing so far, to just go to a bank and get $500 million, because part of the challenge here is that Florida State moves to Big Ten of the SEC, they're going to make a lot more television money. But we remember, we're also looking at a college sports landscape where costs are about to go up significantly for almost everybody. If you're like, okay, well, I've got $145 million in athletic revenue and I have to pay my athletes $0, and then in 2026, suddenly I have to pay my athletes $60 million or $50 million, well, suddenly that gigantic mortgage looks a little bit more risky. Just like if you took out bought a $800,000 house and probably got laid off. The bank is going to look at that and think that might be a little bit riskier than we thought. Private equity will look at that and think we can still function there. We're just going to have to cut a whole hell of a lot of stuff, or we're going to push you to do some things that you wouldn't want to do otherwise. And when that kind of thing happens, it probably won't be Florida State football that suffers, but it will be other Florida State athletes. And I think it will be consumers and fans of Florida State athletics. It's just not a Pandora's box. I think anybody should be really excited about opening, even if you might be a short-term beneficiary of it.
Is the best hope for Florida State that they kind of Clarence Darrow the heck out of this thing in court and prove some sort of flaw in the grant of rights that would then free them to not have to do private equity? They could just negotiate a buyout like everybody else has and move on.
Yeah, I think that is certainly what they would prefer to do, right? And I talked to a couple of attorneys. I need to report this out a little bit more, but I've had a couple of people tell me, there may be a legal argument for saying that this penalty is excessively punitive and it could open up the doors for a different negotiation. And if it's $200 million instead of $500 million, you might be able to get that from a bank. Or if it's $150 million, that's a lot of money, but you might be able to get that without having to give up equity, or without having to give up partial control over some of your assets. And if if the ACC gets $200 million, that might be able to buy you a little bit of flexibility with ESPN. How likely that is right now, I would need to do more reporting. This is the kind of thing I've joked with people like, I never went to law school. I didn't sit for the bar. But I have had to write so much about antitrust, labor law, and now contracts that I think I should be able to sit somewhere. Yeah. This is not what I signed up for when I started this newsletter, but that's what it is to be on this beat these days.
Yeah, no kidding, man. There's a lot of times where I just make it I'm not a lawyer, so I might be wrong on some of these things. But yeah, there's so much legalese and things like that it seems like we've all had to learn or adjust to over these last few months and a couple of years. Yeah. Matt, I know you touched on this in your newsletter. For those that don't subscribe or what have you definitely promote that as much as you want. But in there, here, I guess it was today, you did touch on the new NCAA TV deal that was announced at the tail end of last week. What was just sort of your main takeaway from that? And for those that want to dive a bit further on your writing on that in the newsletter, go ahead and throw that out there for folks as well.
Well, sure. Far be it from me to turn down a chance to shill for myself, right? Friends, I did write about 2,000 words on this at extrapointsmb.com. You can find me at Twitter at MattBrownEP. But I kind of think that the main takeaway here is I think this is a good, but it's not a great deal for the NCAA. And the big kind of public, I think, takeaway is, hey, it's great that the NCAA tripled the value, or more than 3x the value of their championship package here. But women's basketball was projected 2 years ago to be worth between $80 and $110 million annually alone. And in this package, it's valued at in the 60s. And my best understanding here is one, that initial valuation was probably a little bit generous. But for the NCAA to kind of carve out women's basketball and charge as much as they possibly could for it, the marketplace told them, you can do that, but that will mean that nobody's going to want to broadcast the rest of your stuff. And the NCAA member institutions in those conferences felt it was really important to make sure that men's hockey and women's lacrosse and college softball and everything else has access to linear television opportunities for their championships. If this is professionalized completely, maybe that's not necessarily the case, but this is the trade, right? That the NCAA decided we want to make more money so we can give NCAA tournament unit payouts to women's basketball. We can have some more money to give to to pay for our legal defenses, but we're not going to make as much as we possibly can because we still care about broadcast equity for everything else. So if you're a volleyball fan, pretty cool. If you're a swimming fan, pretty cool. If you're Dawn Staley, I get maybe why you're not thrilled.
Matt, we have you on to talk about the issues around things so much. We never actually get into the blood and guts of football with you that much. But tonight is a super interesting matchup. Michigan and Washington. It's two teams that have not been in this position for a very long time. Here they are in the national championship stage. How do you think this game shakes out tonight?
Man, the game, I think this is such an interesting game. And I'm trying to separate my Ohio-ness from this, right? And just look like, all right, we got two teams here that I think are constructed a little bit differently from a lot of other championship caliber teams you've seen recently, because these teams are old, right? Mm-hmm. They recruited well, but they didn't recruit like Alabama. They didn't even recruit like Texas A&M, but they hit on the transfer portal and they got a bunch of seniors and redshirt seniors and COVID guys. They have, I think, individually very fun stars. And this is a fun, I think, strength on strength matchup, right? Because I don't think Michigan has seen anything close to the passing offense and the depth at wide receiver from Washington, that Washington has here, not even from Ohio State. And I don't think Washington fully understands what they're in for at the line of scrimmage. So we get to see kind of a fun strength thing here, right? Can Penix play as well as he did against Texas, knowing he's never going to have more than 3 seconds to throw the ball and he's going to have a hobbled running back? If he can, I think the Huskies beat anybody. I think Michigan wins because I look at that roster. I think that they have more pathways to win. I don't think Washington can win if Penix is just average or just okay, whereas I think Michigan can overcome a bad game from Blake Corum or J.J. McCarthy. But I think it's a fun game, and I think it should also be a positive development if you're at a place like Utah or Baylor or Arizona State or Penn State or some of these other places that can't recruit like Ohio State or Georgia, and realize, okay, now we have a proof of concept of what a roster, the best case scenario looks like for a roster like ours that can win a national championship. And I think that's good for college football.
Matt Brown, Extra Points. Matt, thank you so much. Every time we get you on, I'm smarter. I think our audience is as well.
I appreciate it, fellas. I appreciate all of your support. Enjoy the game here this evening. We'll catch up with you guys later.
All right. Matt Brown, Extra Points, one of the best guests you can get on a podcast. He's really good and has a way of explaining things in a, used to be, you just talked about, can this team beat this team, but that's not our job anymore. So
yeah, it could be if we wanted to slim it down like that. And some choose to focus more on just the purely on the field. But I think when you're like us and you're talking for hours a week, it's a different ball game, but you're out there looking for more than just the simple outcomes. And certainly I think that's part of it, but I think too is just that's what college football has become and college sports has become is multi-layered, and it's about much more than just the games now at this point. It's about all sorts of different topics, from NIL to division breakoffs to expanded playoffs to recruiting ins and outs and calendars and all these different types of things. And all the while, the whole future of the sport is riding on all of these moves, it feels like. So, yeah, it's become complex and year-round, much like the NFL turned itself into. They did it intentionally.
Yeah.
I think college football's done it a little less intentionally, but it's worked out that way, and it's worked out well for folks like us and Matt Brown who do love college sports, whether sometimes it pisses us off or it is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's the gamut of emotions in the game we love, and it's a lot more than just, the on the field now at this point. So it's great to have somebody like Matt to share in those topics with us and discuss them, and then in a lot of cases as well, shed a little bit of light where I need some light to kind of further understand what's going on, or maybe just a certain way that he says something makes it click in my head a little bit differently. Like I think clicked in his head when you mentioned your part about the playoff and, the Big 12, for example, stance on it. I could kind of hear his wheels turning there as far as that goes. So, yeah, it's fun to have folks that love college sports on, and definitely go subscribe to his newsletter. There's a lot of good stuff off the field, whether it be, we didn't even get into the NCAA video game with him.
Yeah.
There will be plenty of time for that, but that's something he's been covering as well. So, yeah, good to get his thoughts on just a scattering of different topics, and a lot of plates in the air right now.
It'll be here before you know it, and Jack will be the first in line to get it, I'm sure.
Are we going to have that hooked up in here like day one, you think, NCAA?
I hope so.
I'm sure that Garrett's going to force that issue.
Yeah. We'll probably just have to do YouTube content of our tournament that we'll have, which I'm not as confident in anymore since, I'm well past my prime.
Yeah,
but,
me too.
Get me back in. Just get me back in the game.
Yeah.
I can have maybe a George Foreman beats Riddick Bowe type moment.
I actually think that's part of why I don't play games as much as I used to. I do play a lot of RPGs and things like that. I got away from sports. I think part of it though was that college football was my favorite game to play, and then it went away. So I just didn't, and I didn't go fill that hole with Madden necessarily because I didn't always love Madden or love just playing Madden. So playing with NFL teams like I did with college teams, and I know that there's other folks that go so much deeper with like their 15-year dynasties that they had built up and things like that. I mean, it goes into the weeds in a good way. And probably in a bad way in some cases as well. But I know there's a lot of folks very excited about that return of NCAA college football.
When I was in college, of course, the PS2 was just out then, in college. And we had, in our house, had a years-long dynasty of all three of us playing against each other. And I remember two of us went to a party at someone else's house. Or not even a party, but just kind of like a Saturday hangout, in the off season of football. It was just people drinking beer, and I thought everybody was playing. I was like, oh, we've got this. We're really good. And the dude who beat everybody, I was like, how is he this good at this game? And they're like, well, he doesn't go to class.
That's all he does is play the game. Yeah, I know people like that. His
parents
for
gonna
sure.
be his parents a month from now are gonna be so pissed, so pissed.
But they've won 4 straight national titles, so it's all good.
But somehow Bowling Green is the best team because he was that bored and built them up into something here on the game. All right, when we come back, we'll talk more about the national championship, plus some other moves, transfer portal and otherwise, that have happened, and hopefully Smokey will get back from prompt
I think he's just really trying not to work with us guys. I don't know about y'all at this point, but damn.
What if he's just doing another talk show right now?
He could be.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was gone for 3 of 4 shows last week. As soon as we came back today, he's here for 30 minutes. My computer's suddenly missing. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll keep on keeping on here, I guess.
Yeah. We'll make sure. I have to send it to the principal's office. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on when it comes to getting your vehicle serviced, when it comes to going and buying a vehicle, whatever you're looking to do. They can make it easier for you and make it a time that you will never forget to make sure that you don't want to go back to any other dealership for all of your car and truck needs. But right now, don't get the A truck, get the truck. A GMC Sierra from Richard Carr is what we're highlighting. Power and strength and a stunning interior. GMC Sierra is the truck that has it all. And right now, there's hundreds of trucks on the lot ready to move at a great price. You can save thousands in holiday savings on cars and trucks happening right now over at Richard Carr. And with the trade, qualified buyers can save $10,000 on a GMC Sierra SLT crew cabs, right? $10,000 on a GMC Sierra SLT crew cab. Plus, if you're military or first responder, you can also save an additional $500. Restrictions do apply, so the dealer will help you out with more of the details. But don't get the A truck, get the truck, which is the GMC Sierra right now over at Richard Carr. They've been in business for 24 years in Central Texas, and over that time, they built a reputation as the people that you can count on for your automotive needs. Richard Carr, run by proud Central Texans and proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com to see all of their deals today, or call them now, or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Look who's back. Again,
the good news.
David Smoak, everybody.
The good news is my hard drive is okay. Man, I just like I said before I left, what would be worse? Do you lose your cell phone or your laptop? Well, the information on both is huge.
I think for you, it'd probably be laptop, but I don't think everybody carries like their entire lives on their laptop the way that you do. So that's probably why. Like I would lose some pictures I saved or whatever, but it's via my iCloud anyways.
Right.
So I wouldn't really fret that too much. But my
thanks
cell
to
phone,
Josh at Prompt Technology.
Yeah, shout out to Prompt Technology. Yeah, good to have you back. I was questioning if you even wanted to do a show with us before you got back here after the last few days.
There are times that if I had like money, then
you distribute it and pay us more. That'd
think
be
about
awesome.
how screwed up. You have to have money to retire. Mm-hmm. It's not fair. Can't you just retire and government funding? Get into all that. All right,
I mean, that's called Social Security. It's just not very
I'm
good.
64 3/4.
Yeah,
and that's something I have to deal with on May 2nd of next year, and this year. So we have not gone over some of what happened in the transfer portal and or those who declared to enter the NFL draft. Now, coming up on Wednesday night, it's the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, and one of the finalists this year is Texas running back Jonathan Brooks, and I was told that he's declared to enter the NFL draft.
He has.
He announced that maybe a few days ago. I think it's official now. But the one today, Adonai Mitchell, the wide receiver at Texas, who was involved in that last play against Washington, I think most people probably realized he's ready, but there may have been that romanticism or whatever you want to say about him coming back. now, A.D. Mitchell, has entered the draft from Texas too.
Well, I believe this exists with college football fans, but particularly Texas fans. I remember even going back to Vince Young when he declared early. They're like, well, nobody declares early. I'm like, Vince Young declaring early.
Yeah.
Like, there's
You talk about at the top of your game.
To be fair, though, like, they had a run there where guys always came back. Like, it did not matter. They always came back to school for their fourth year. And Vince was actually the one that I recall at least.
He broke
that. Yeah, that string that Mac Brown had. And then it's been that way ever since.
But now also, like, I think there's still that fans that were still haven't like done the math on it yet. But now, everybody's doing it. Like, it's not all that uncommon for people to leave early, especially now with the way that if you're a top 100 pick in the NFL draft, your contract for the first 4 years of your life is really good. I mean, that's like even a third round pick, your guaranteed money, the league minimum is really, really good. And, the way that coaches develop now, it's a lot different. So it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Texas was going to get rated by the NFL. That's great news for Texas and bad news for Texas on the same time.
Well, the good news is they have a lot of guys who are going to fill those roles and also have had some really nice back-to-back signing classes too, and they'll get who they need in the portal as if they already have not gotten those anyway.
I mean, they will, but, let's also be real. I think this is why I talked the other day about how you're very excited about the future if you're Texas, but you also saw a very nice window that was there for you about a week ago that closed and smashed and the glass broke, because you're going to realize like how talented this team was and that, man, they should have been playing for a national championship. And the fact that they didn't even get to the championship game, I think you do have to view as some level of disappointment, and you can't be guaranteed that this is going to go this way moving forward, no matter the talent, because how many close calls do they also have? So
and a couple, three.
Yeah, they had
Houston,
they had a couple close calls there. This wasn't just
Kansas
skating
State
through the schedule without any blips on the horizon. But I think that this is a significant loss. It's not one that they can't replace. Adonai Mitchell, but it is a guy who was by far their biggest big play wide receiver. If you needed a big catch in a big moment, that was the guy you went to. And look no further than the other night when the season riding on the line, who did they go to? They went to A.D. Mitchell. So he led them in touchdowns this past season. He led them in yards per catch. And there'd be times where you didn't really see too much of him. And then you get late in the game and they needed a big first down and they needed to score. Guess who suddenly showed up? Mitchell, and there he was in the end zone, most likely of all places, to catch the football and give them a big moment. And so, I think he's a big-time wide receiver and a big moment wide receiver, a game-on-the-line wide receiver. And, he and Worthy were just a terrific pair for them this past season. So to be losing both of those guys, I do think, you like Jonte Cooks and you like various other recruits that you brought in. And you're going to bring in some guys like from Houston, Matthew Golden, and you're going to have guys like that to step up and replace these other players. But no doubt about it that this is a loss, and he's a really great player that you're going to be happy that you saw in burnt orange, but you wish it would last a little bit longer. So, not surprised by that announcement, but that's Jonathan Brooks that's now out the door. That's Xavier Worthy that's now out the door. That's
Jalen Ford
out the door. Byron Murphy out the door.
Ryan Watts.
You
already mentioned.
I was going to get to him because we haven't said that just yet. But there are other D linemen. Andre Sweat out the door. So, that's a handful of big-time playmakers for them that has all declared for the draft. And might as well go ahead and mention the one that you just did, Ryan Watts, cornerback, also declaring for the draft and heading to the NFL. So, it's one of their bigger, better players in the secondary, dealt with injuries, often. But that was a unit when it came to the game the other night of where is Texas's weakness, and they're really trying to bulk up and build up that secondary, but he was one of their bright spots at times. And so not irreplaceable, but I do think, that's certainly a loss as well. So, Ryan Watts and A.D. Mitchell both added to that mix of players along with Jalen Ford. So, it's been a busy bunch of declarations. You did get Jake Majors announcing that he was going to come back.
Yeah, the center.
Your center for next season. But and I guess Quinn Ewers has yet to officially announce anything, but most of the guys, and I guess Jatavian Sanders, we need to hear from him. And
he's declared.
He's gone.
Did he
He's
declare?
declared, yeah.
Okay, well, that's not surprising. Maybe I just am forgetting that. So, yeah, he's gone. That's not a surprise whatsoever. So, yeah, I guess really Ewers is maybe just about the only guy at this point that you're wondering about.
Unless you've got another offensive lineman or two, I would think, that are gonna maybe
I tell you
leave or
what,
come back. But
Majors and a couple of linemen, they were jittery in that game. I know it's been a week since that game, but that kind of started out a little bit with some of the offensive line false starts and movement or whatever. But Majors coming back is a big deal because they have such a good, thick, strong, deep offensive line. And that's where it all starts. I don't care what you do on an offense, who you are, or what your mentality is offensively.
Yeah, that's been one of the major reasons for their little turnaround is beefing up and getting better along that offensive line. They invested there, as we'll all remember, starting a couple of years back with NIL and recruited really well there. So, yeah, to get Jake Majors back is good, but everybody else pretty much other than Ewers has all declared to go to the NFL. So you can say what you want to about the NIL and transfer portal and recruiting and all that. I just don't think you just – all of that impact, I don't think you just bring in freshmen and a guy from Bowling Green and, whatever else, and you just go like, oh, yeah, we'll be right back where we are. But an expanded playoff, who the heck knows? There's also, we must mention the changeover there, or the hire of Arizona defensive coordinator Johnny Nansen as their co-DC and linebackers coach after a terrific year that Arizona had. I know there was some reporting on that from our good buddy Jason Shear, who was all over that these last few days. So, that seems like to be a pretty big hire for them on the defensive side of the football, as well as Jeff Choate goes to go coach or become the new head coach at Nevada. So I think that's worth mentioning, and that's a loss for Arizona, who now makes their way into the Big 12 coming off a pretty hot year. So that's notable.
So what is more, the transfer portal is number one, the most active. I know Florida State had a pretty good weekend, Paul. I know Matt Rowan, Nebraska had a couple of guys added. Baylor added Ashton Hawkins, the wide receiver. Texas State had right before the weekend ended, as you guys were wrapping up the show, the Montana State All-American offensive lineman. But my goodness, I honestly, it is hard for me to keep up with because it's never ending.
Well, and it's just there's so many because, like if you're trying to follow NBA free agency, there's not – hold on, I'll tell you. There's not 2,065 NBA free agents. That's how many people are there, and 818 of them have committed. There's not even 818. I mean, so it's hard to.
And there's a timeline.
Yeah, there's all this that goes on. But I think Nebraska, like you mentioned, Nebraska had a really interesting weekend. Isaiah Nayor, they picked up Dowdle, the running back from Oregon. Now, we're in the phase, outside of you getting Evan Stewart or Quinshon Judkins, who are, obviously, highly sought after people in the portal. We're in this guy was a 4-star a year or two ago. He wasn't a fit. Let's see how it works out. Isaiah Nayor was tremendous at Wyoming, dealt with injuries when he came to Texas and was not part of their main receiver rotation really. So let's see if they can squeeze something out of him because skill positions in Nebraska, we're probably their, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, the weakest spots on the entire team. And they've addressed that in a lot of different ways this offseason. But yeah, that's where we are is, okay, you didn't work out here. You've got this skill set. Let's see if you can do better at our spot and we can coach you differently because, again, outside of Quinshon Judkins, I don't think anybody, and maybe, Tailua Tagovailoa, if he gets his 6th year, are going to, set the world on fire.
I don't know. Based on everything that I've read, all 2,000 guys or however many have moved are all huge additions to their respective team that they've just joined. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
Massive pickups, a.k.a. huge additions. I just find that funny that's how it's always sort of reported as every single guy is a huge addition to wherever they've now landed, no matter what they did or did not do previously. But I get that, and yeah, it's a lot to sort through. I just saw Kendrick Blackshear from Alabama, big-time linebacker.
Is he from Dallas-Fort Worth?
Duncanville, yeah. Big-time linebacker recruit, just a year or two ago?
I believe it was last year.
Yeah, so he's already in the portal. So that's another guy who's just jumped in there here today. And I know that there's probably others today that have jumped in there as well. I don't know how notable they'd be on our radar, but Kendrick Blackshear certainly is because I remember how big of a high school recruit he was. And he had Texas all over him, I think A&M. And, I mean, obviously ended up at Alabama. So he's now back in the pool. And can get re-recruited, so that'll be interesting to see there. But it's a lot to keep track of, and it's a lot of names to learn, and it's a lot of fits to learn, and you have the coaching changeover on top of that, and it's a lot to sort through. So good thing we have an off season to kind of clear up, and eventually the dust will settle, and you can go, okay, this is the roster, and these are the guys on the roster.
But will it ever settle?
I mean, it does every year. I mean, let's not. I get what you're saying, but it is what it is, and it's been this way now for a few years. So it's not going to settle right now. They'll have the post spring ball exoduses, and then that will shift again. And then guess what? You'll have your roster put together in the summer, and those teams then go play their football season. So yeah, it'll settle. But this whole this is what it is, and this is what it's going to be, and it's not going to be ever again a situation where they play the national title and then we go dark for a month and a half until signing day number 2 in February, or we have the little build up for that, and then we go dark for a couple of weeks, and then it's spring ball, and then we go dark. I mean, it's year round now, and that's not by design the way the NFL designed it to be that way. It's the result of all of these different rules changes, but it has led to a year round following of the sport for better or worse.
Free agency 24/7. Sergeant Pickles, huge Washington fan, super chat. Win or lose, hope the boys leave it all out there. Lord willing, sun will rise tomorrow, but man, would it be great to wake up a champion. Go Dogs.
Soak it in. I mean, soak it in. You don't know when you're going to get back to this point. I know Washington, this is not their first playoff appearance, so you feel pretty confident, especially with coaching changes. They still found their way back here relatively quickly, and now in the actual game of games. So they're on a great trajectory, and odds favor Washington making appearances here again in the future, but you just never know, right? You just never know, and there's only so many times like a truly special team comes around, and this is certainly a truly special team for Washington. So soak tonight in, and I do hope that at worst it's a very entertaining game for you. But yeah, I mean, if you get to sit there and celebrate a national championship tonight, that would be awesome. So appreciate you checking us out in the build up to it, and good luck to you tonight, and enjoy it as best you can.
Well, for everybody that signed at Alabama, any incoming freshmen that signed at Alabama, they were guaranteed to win a national title at least once in 3 years. They now have not won a national title in 3 years. Even Alabama, with all of what they have, and of course there's others who have now risen to a different level, like Georgia, that's made that difficult. Clemson in that mix too. Oklahoma last played for a national title. It was in the mid-2000s, correct?
No, I mean, if you don't count the playoff, yeah, they make it the playoff.
Played for the national title.
Mid-2000s.
Mid-2000s.
But Texas, people can take that differently. You technically are playing, but I get what you're saying.
You never know when all of a sudden it's 8 to 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 years. That's my point. And it was kind of just reiterating what you had said as well.
You can think that your decade-long drought is over, and then a bunch of stuffed shirts in a room can just rip the rug out from under you for an arbitrary reason.
Has it been 10 years since Jameis? Has it been 10?
2013.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah. So.
All right, NFL entries. We mentioned some of them from Texas. The transfer portal. We'll have him, we hope, Ashton Hawkins of Texas State, who's transferring to Baylor, here in just a moment.
Here's one that's interesting. Miami has been trying to get a quarterback for since the portal opened. They have gotten a commitment from Albany quarterback Reese Poffenbarger. He began his career at Old Dominion, 1 season there, transferred to Albany. He put up a lot of numbers there, 36-yard, led the FCS with 36 passing touchdowns and 3,603 yards passing. So he's got some big numbers. I don't think this is probably it for Miami, but that's an interesting pickup for the Hurricanes in their quest to find a transfer portal quarterback.
Yeah, they described him, they being whichever article I read initially, as a gunslinger, and you look at some of his numbers and you can see that there's definitely some better or worse gunslinger aspects to his number, like the completion percentage wasn't real hot, but then he threw for a lot of yards, and no, he seems like a gamer, and some of the responses that I read for those who had seen a little bit of Albany football seem to think that, there's a little something. I mean, he's not a guy that you feel like you're going to go win the national championship with necessarily, but there's something to him. He's not just a nothing pickup, which some may just see Albany and think, oh, well, what's he going to do, making this leap up? But hey, Cam Ward went and made a leap up, and he turned into a pretty great story for Washington State. So maybe this is the type of jump up and thriving on the next level that we see for Miami here. But yeah, you can say this for sure, not what they planned on originally. not what was originally in the script for, let's go into the portal and go grab a quarterback. I think that they had their designs on much bigger names, but, you landed a quarterback, you needed a quarterback, and let's see what this kid can do.
Well, did we not get a sneak peek at him a couple of years ago, right?
I don't know if he played against.
I think he played against them this year, right? I don't remember. I was on my way to Dallas to turn in a rental car. That was the nightmare weekend of coming in from Midland, Odessa.
He did play against Baylor. I mean, I that game to me is just so far in the rearview mirror. I couldn't tell you much about that performance because all I recall from that game, honestly, was just how pitiful Baylor looked in many ways in that game, and how no, he's not listed on here. From this, was that been in
Albany? Was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay,
yeah. You're thinking about the game with Long Island.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Long Island. You're right. The other massive New York powerhouse that they played in the non-conference. 2 years ago
That's
he played.
Law Tech's fault, by the way.
Yeah. It is Law Tech's fault, but they lost 69-10. He was 13 of 26 for a touchdown, and he ran for 45 yards. So that's why it doesn't jump out to me as something that remained for very long, probably past that game, but has some good numbers in other contests, and I think that the gunslinger description seems to be pretty apt based on all the things that I was reading about him. So 36 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, but 3,600 yards passing, able to run it a little bit as well. So
they were in the quarterfinals. If I maybe recalled that before we went on a break, they were playing in the quarterfinals in the FCS. So they had a pretty good run.
Yeah.
No, they were. They were. All right. So if they had not picked him up to his brother,
I mean, yeah, but we don't know what's going to happen there, and I think they may still do that. But maybe that's. I mean, I don't know if you're Reese Povenbarger and you wanted to get your shot at playing FBS football, and then Tailua Tagovailoa comes in there. That Miami's probably going to be like, hey, we appreciate it when you did, but you're the backup now. So I don't know. I mean, that's. That'll be interesting to see with that if Tailua Tagovailoa gets that 6th year of eligibility by blaming Alabama math or whatever he's going to do to get that.
Retired stockbroker, Super Chat 365, Go Blue, hail to the victors. Michigan tried to win their first national title since the one they split with Nebraska in 1997. When Washington, and I mentioned this to Softy, the last time they won a national title in 1991, they beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl to win the national title. They ended up beating Michigan pretty handily that year. And Billy Joe Hobart was their quarterback.
Oh, my gosh.
Brock Heward was on the roster. Hobart was the quarterback. Steve Empman was 4th in the Heisman Trophy that Desmond Howard won, but a note about that earlier from the interview with Dave Softy Mahler. When we come back, Ashton Hawkins is now a little bit wobbly. Hopefully he's done with what he's involved with, the transfer from Texas State who committed to play at Baylor, and Dave Aranda. If not, we got plenty to discuss. This is 365 Sports. It's the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat on the Loop in Waco, and also starting the 2024 kickoff. Outstanding year-end closeout deals last month. Huge savings on some of the most versatile and luxurious vehicles in the market now. 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with $15,000 below MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. Or how about the 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, $12,000 below MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. And the Jeep deals will blow your mind. 2023 Gladiator Overland, $13,185 off MSRP, and every 2023 Gladiator gets 15% off MSRP. Amazingly hot deals include the Grand Cherokee, best-selling SUV ever, and all the 2023 models are 10% below MSRP. The 2023 Jeep Compass and Jeep Renegades are also 10% off and below MSRP. Don't wait too long. The incentives expire on January 16th, so you have a couple of weeks to do that. Inventory dwindling, time is running out, but what a great start to the year. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sick'em 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at sick'em365.com.
Ashton Hawkins is now not available and not exactly sure what happened, but not available. Spoke with him shortly, a little bit yesterday evening, but now not available. We have a national championship game to discuss, and we'll get to more of that, along with more, and in fact, former Baylor defensive coordinator Ron Roberts. Is that right?
Yeah, we can get to him, but how about we talk about Ashton Hawkins? I mean, it's, we're going to sit here and talk to him, so let's go ahead and, I guess, talk about him and the pickup for Baylor before we get to some of the other news. Big-time player at Texas State, big-time wide receiver and a playmaker for them, and a guy who we got to see just this past season who had a bit of an impact in that upset win over Baylor with G.J. Kinney making his first showing there as the Bobcats head coach, but ended up with 5 catches, 58 yards in that game, had close to 900 on the season, 3 touchdowns only, which is a number that you certainly want to see spike up and balloon a bit more next year. But speedy guy, not the biggest guy in the room, but they've got kind of the outside wide receivers. I think you're looking for a bit more of a playmaker and a sure thing, and that's something that I think you do get in Ashton Hawkins. When I saw his name originally getting mentioned there in the transfer portal, that was a guy who immediately I said, like, yeah, that's somebody who I think would definitely make a lot of sense. The connection with Jake Spavital and just having seen him a little bit, and seems like a guy primed to make a jump up from Texas State to a Big 12 type program. So not the end all be all type of a pickup, but as far as a guy giving you a little bit something different than you have on the roster, something proven, that's not like, well, if this freshman grows up in 2 years, we're going to be, no, like a guy who's actually been there, done that, and can come in and be a guy in the room who's made plays and can hopefully have that rub off a bit on some of the other wide receivers. I think pairing him up with this new Spavital offense and having guys like Keytron Jackson and Monterey Baldwin around you makes them better in that wide receiver room. So I think it's a really solid pickup. Had 3 100-yard games this year. Like I said, could afford to get in the end zone a little bit more, but I think that the fit makes sense, the relationship makes sense, and the need makes a lot of sense for them to go and get Ashton Hawkins. So I like this pickup for Baylor. And I'm not somebody who's going to go gaga over every guy they pick up out of the transfer portal, but this one I did think was a very nice addition.
Well, he had, you mentioned touchdowns. The year before he had 7. His yards per catch went up dramatically from 10.5 yards per catch to 16 yards per catch from one year to the next when he had basically the same amount of receptions. He's from DeSoto High School, and we know how much they have cranked out great talent. So there it was. I hate that he's not available, but I went to call him yesterday evening, and I accidentally FaceTimed him, and he was driving. I said, "Oh no, I got it. Don't worry about it." We talked for a couple of minutes, thought we'd get him on, but that's an addition for what Baylor was able to pick up in the transfer portal.
They need one of the things they need on the roster that they just seemingly haven't had. They've got guys who've been like big play guys, but they need a receptions monster, a guy who you can throw the ball to 15. He could have 13 catches in a game. Like, they just didn't really have that for the last couple of years. He's one of those guys. Now, if LeJontay Wester, who's visiting several other places, but he's visited there, he could be that guy as well. And that's what they do need, like somebody who can, make some big plays, sure, but who do you have that – there's going to be a day where you just need to feed this monster and can do that. He appears, especially
he is more of a body of a slot receiver.
Especially in the spread offense where sometimes you're going to need like that guy to have, 9, 10, 11 catches in a day.
Yeah, somebody that has 8 catches, 87 yards, and on occasion he scores a touchdown.
Yeah, he's not going to be at double digits. No. He's not going to be like Keon Coleman out there with like 12 catches a game and whatnot. But he's a guy who is tried and true. He's proven. He's played a long time now at the college level, has been in a lot of games, and has made a lot of catches. So, yeah, he's a guy that can give you a handful to 10 or make, 3 catches and at least have one of them go for like 30 yards, right? I mean, he can find the end zone, and he's got some twitch to him. So I think it's a proven thing versus rounding out the receiving core with another unproven redshirt freshman and just banking your hopes on, they'll figure it out or it'll eventually click for them. Like, here's a guy who's done it. He's done it with Jake Spavital, and that's more than a lot of the rest of that room can say. With all due respect to them, I just think that this is a sure thing versus a lot of still wondering what exactly you have in that room with a lot of those guys. So that's to me why it's as big of a get as anything else, is now you have a proven commodity in that room that you can lean on in those games like Paul mentions where you need to keep going to a guy.
I'm not sure if you guys brought this up when I was out for a little bit, but Dennis Dodd, college football playoff formally decides participating conference has to have 8 teams. Pac-12 officially out in terms of Oregon State, Washington State.
After a couple more years, though.
No, we still know the timeline. But they have time to add people to their conference between now and then.
I mean, I guess that's officially official that will be the threshold, but that doesn't affect them for a couple of years. So by that time, they're going to have already their landing spot, whatever that looks like.
You'd hope.
Yeah. Well, but they're going to be somewhere. They're going to be in a rebuilt pack, or they're going to be in some other configuration or some other conference just straight up. I know there's rumors galore about what their futures hold, and there's no real way to tell what's truth and what's not right now because there's so many plates up in the air. But, yeah, they're not going to be able to just get by for the next several years as a 2-team conference or a 6-team conference or whatever plans you might have had. They're going to eventually have to build that out or just completely shutter it and go join another league that meets that threshold. But yeah, that's not a surprise to see that they're not going to be game for conferences with less than 8 members, having a seat at the table.
Yeah, and so that's just part of documentation basically moving forward. It will still be interesting on the 5 and 7 when it goes to that. So it's the 5 highest ranked conference champions, including a group of 5 highest ranked conference champions. So there we are again. At least it appears there could be 4 Power 5 conferences. But again, depending on what happens with Oregon State, Washington State.
Yeah, absolutely, and so we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, the 4 highest ranked Power 5 or the 5 conference champions are the ones who are going to be in. So but it does take out the possibility of the I guess the Pac could if Oregon State or Washington State is just really that good in the next 2 years and has a really high ranking with their exemption. But I'm gonna pause on that until it happens.
Yeah. I just think that there's still a lot to work out. We don't really need a declaration on what that's going to be right now today, and so we got to just kind of let that situation play itself out. But I don't think anybody was ever under the impression that they were going to just let them fly by as a Pac-2 or just let that be what it is, an automatic type of a situation like it was beforehand. This is not the Pac as we knew it. It's a Pac in name only and with a couple of teams, but there's a lot to sort through as they try and figure out what they want to do with this playoff moving forward and what that's going to look like.
All right. Also, do you have the Wolverine tweet? Garrett, I saw this earlier today with Michigan and also Washington playing. The State Department of Natural Resources for State of Washington. Good morning from the only state playing football today that actually has Wolverines.
Wow, that's nice. That's some nice smack talk there. But as we've seen, it doesn't matter. I'll give the example of the Utah Jazz. How many jazz clubs exist in Salt Lake City, Utah?
Dozens.
I've been there. None.
They're tucked in holes in the wall.
Yeah, I like when Miles Davis was singing. Was singing or was playing his trumpet. It was not about the good old days at the SLC. So sometimes it doesn't matter. There's not a crap load of lakes in LA either. At least not naturally occurring ones.
But there's salt lakes.
Well, I mean, they're just So
salt flats.
Yeah. So they things are whatever they are. They've always been the Wolverines. I guess they identified with that, and so. To be quite honest with you, that currently there's not actually a lot of Seminoles in Tallahassee. They're in the state, but not in the actual city. So, But yeah, I like the smack talk.
So there we are. You want to get to Ron Roberts?
Yeah, absolutely. Former Baylor defensive coordinator and now looks like soon to be former Auburn defensive coordinator Ron Roberts is on his way to Florida as executive head coach for defense, co-defensive coordinator, and linebackers coach, according to Matt Zenix of 24/7 Sports. So an interesting hire. They lost their defensive coordinator to this was the defensive coordinator, their linebackers coach, to A&M as their new defensive coordinator. But they have a very young defensive coordinator whose name escapes me at the moment that they think very highly of. So bringing in Rob Roberts as the co-DC and linebackers coach might help him kind of find his stride. He's like 31 years old, maybe even younger, their defensive coordinator at Florida.
Hey, Ron Roberts has moved around a lot these last couple of years, and so obviously that changeover with Auburn and Ron Roberts and Philip Montgomery as their coordinators, the whole former Baylor assistants, various eras that they joined in, as Roberts was a part of the Aranda era and Montgomery is back in the Browse era, but that was just unique for us to see those two joining up in Auburn, Alabama, of all places, and to see what they could do. That just did not work out very well for the one-year experiment. So, good luck to him. I think he's a heck of a defensive coach, and I think that Florida will definitely get the benefits of his teachings and his approach and all of that. But, he's a guy who's been around the block a few times, and obviously is not moving too far away from Auburn to Gainesville, sticking around in the SEC. So, good luck to him. And Hugh Freeze trying to go back to the drawing board a little bit after the offseason hires that he made.
Austin Armstrong is the
Let me tell you,
coordinator.
Yeah, he's the one. No, there was also over the weekend, I believe, an Alabama wide receivers coach that moved to A&M. And Arian Hampton, who's from Dangerfield, who was recruited by everybody, committed to Alabama. This is right after the National Signing Day. Committed to Alabama, signed with Alabama, and then when the coach decided to go to A&M a day or two after National Signing Day, which is always a little bit the timeline there, he put up a couple of broken heart emojis. Like he might have been the difference in him going to Alabama.
Well, and maybe he was, but I will say this, and I'm prepared to die on this hill. If you're a recruitable athlete and you are going somewhere because of a position coach, that's all well and good. But don't be surprised when that guy goes and gets more money elsewhere, because that's the nature of coaching. So go somewhere because of the head coach and not the position coach, because the head coach has more staying power than coordinators or position coaches, because, promotions happen, different things happen, people go places, and, more power to you if you want to be a wide receivers coach forever, but most people don't. They want to move up the ladder, or they want to get raises, and that's why they leave and go other places. So don't get attached. Don't name the puppy.
All right, let's get into the national championship game, which is 90 minutes away in Houston, just around the corner, 3 hours from us at NRG. It was a pouring down weather that a lot of guys a lot of men and women are navigating, fans getting into the stadium as well. But it should be one hell of a game. We'll get into taking your predictions, not if Washington wins, but also Michigan wins. But give us a score if you'd like, and also a reason of what will be the difference in the game. The chat room continues if you want to do that. The text line, 254-339-1122. Before we take the break, though, this has been one of the strongest, lucrative relationships in pro sports when it comes to a sponsor. Tiger Woods. I have bought many things Nike because of Tiger Woods. My favorite golfer. His run was unbelievable. His story is incredible. The ups and downs of him in his life. But Nike and Tiger, this was just a few days after Jason Day on the PGA Tour switched to a different sponsor. He was a Nike guy, and he showed up with a different logo on his hat. And it was over the fact that apparently he was upset that he would go to the driving range and was supposed to have this extra special Nike brand that was always so ahead of the curve, and others on the range were wearing basically the same stuff with a different brand. So Jason Day changed. And now, 3 or 4 days after that story, they were down in Hawaii as far as the golf tournament, the Century Open. Tiger Woods and Nike was like almost, you would think you would never see the day. I have bought numerous things, again, as I said, because of Tiger, not so much because of Nike.
The more I think about it, it kind of makes sense just from a functional standpoint in that Nike doesn't have a golf line anymore. They stopped doing it in 2016, so Tiger's not playing as much anymore, so look, and you know me, I'm a big Tiger fan as you are. I love Tiger, but if I'm Nike, and I'm like, well, I mean, if he's only going to play in 5 tournaments a year, he can, because
no way,
all that, like,
no way.
But I'm starting to think about long term about where I'm going. I don't have a golf line. Am I going to go to Tiger with the same thing I did? And given Tiger's perspective on it, well, if there's not golf stuff, if the best golf stuff is with somebody else, and I'm Tiger Woods, the greatest living golfer right now, then I need to maybe be with somebody else. So I get it from both angles. It's weird. It's going to be weird seeing him wearing something else, but he's already not wearing Nike spikes. He's wearing FootJoy spikes. He's not using Nike golf equipment anymore because they don't make it anymore. So he's
hitting a Bridgestone golf ball and has been for a couple of years now.
So like all that stuff is over. So yeah, I mean, I guess Nike had an expiration date on it. It's just kind of surprising.
Yeah, it's almost like comparing Nike without Jordan. And that goes on. You would think that the Nike and Tiger relationship and royalties, et cetera, would go on forever, but that will be interesting to get more into that. Golf Digest had that particular story. When we come back, the 5 o'clock hour, this is 365 Sports.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
He was a pretty good player in high school. In fact, he was at Jesuit High School. Emmett Smith's son, EJ, went to Stanford. Great fit, you would think. Great place to be. Great place to get your education. Saw Emmett put up yesterday, I think it was yesterday, that congratulating his son for heading back to Texas. He'll play for Texas A&M. Nothing really happened at Stanford, but Emmett Smith, the high school star from Jesuit in Dallas, is now going to be a part of one of the transfers to the Aggies.
Yeah, EJ, it'll be interesting. They've got a loaded running back room there. Moss is back. Reuben Owens is there. And now EJ Smith. I think the offense, is going to be, heavy on running the ball, so that's good. It'll be interesting to see. A&M's going to have at least right now, I'm sure this might change after spring, but all 3 of their quarterbacks back potentially. So Mike Elko's got kind of an interesting running start. They've been loading up on transfer portal players the last few days. A&M has so much so that they've had some they had a guy, no, I'm not going to A&M, I'm going here, and I'm going here, I'm going to A&M, and it's like you don't even notice. Like he's gone, let's get this other guy.
No, it's
been nuts at Texas A&M in the portal, and E.J. Smith is one of those. It'll be interesting to see, what he does in that offense there. I thought he might, follow his father's footsteps and go to the Gators, but he's going to be an Aggie.
It's being talked about a bit more because he's Emmitt Smith's son.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as production goes, he had a fine little career at Stanford. It's an accomplishment to even get there in the first place, but he dealt with a lot of injuries. Had a better year this past year, but it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like a 1,000-yard running back and, multiple touchdowns or anything like that. He'll be a part of a pack. He'll be a part of a group of guys there at A&M, and that should work well. He's a fine player. It's just that he's not like going to be your starting running back and toting the rock 25 times per game is what I'm getting at.
No.
So as part of a complementary group and with Elko's focus on running the football, I think that's a solid pickup, and I think you get some bang for your buck with the fact that you'll have Emmitt at some of your games as well, be able to show him in the crowd and things like that. So he was a guy that originally got recruited by A&M in high school and now finds his way back, and that's one of the other parts of the transfer portal is those relationships that you make early on. Don't forget those, or I guess set those bridges on fire, because in this transfer portal world, more likely than not, you are going to come across some people that you saw the first time around, and you are going to maybe see them on a staff for a program that you would be interested in joining. So, yeah, he eventually ends up at A&M and should be a part of a pretty solid little group, and looking forward to see what Elko does with the rest of this roster.
A couple of different stories as we go in and out of some predictions in the chat room. Let's see. Sir blah, 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 Washington 30, Michigan 22. Scotty says 35-31 Washington, because I think Michigan doesn't get enough stops on defense. There was this is a blowout here. Allen 59-21 Washington.
Wow, that would be something.
Man, that would be.
I almost want to make one of those dumb bets on that.
Michigan would have to completely fall apart on defense. I'm leaning towards Washington myself. I mean, Washington hasn't really done that to anybody. I mean, it's not really who they are. They're very smooth and they're very good, but they, the last 5 minutes of most games it's like they're being coached by Mel Gibson and Lethal Weapon. It's just kind of goes.
It's a riverboat gambler type mentality, or just like get loose with it. I don't know.
It works out, but there's destruction in their wake. So
yeah, and Michigan hasn't given up more than 30 the entire year.
Yeah, they pretty much
something.
Tom Rucker, good question. If Washington wins, where does the money get allocated within the Pac-12? I don't know the exact number, but it all goes to the conference.
Yeah, the Pac-12. It's not like they're going to lose out on the money this year. Everything starts next year. So it's not like the Big Ten is going to get the money because they swooped in and stole Washington. The contracts end on June 30th of this year.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Everything that happens this academic year goes to the previously established conference.
And I'm not so sure, and this may be a little bit silly, but I don't know if it matters if you win the game or not. You're in the game.
You've already been paid for it.
Yeah, because you're in the national championship game. It's like in the NCAA tournament, you get units based on wins and how you advance among all of your conference teams. At the end, they figure it out, and it's on a rotation over like 3 to 6 years when it comes to men's basketball. But a good question, one I didn't think much about, and when I saw it, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. But that already is something that's accounted for, and it doesn't matter if they win the game or not.
Yeah, all the teams that made the playoff, their conferences are already guaranteed to get that amount of money, and that's set. You don't get any more for making the national championship game, or winning the national championship game, to my knowledge.
You get more for being in the national championship game, I believe, as a conference, but you don't get more for winning the game.
Yeah, we may need to double check on that, but yeah, not for winning the game. So, that's a part of the Pac puzzle, and I guess that's probably something that was also discussed when they were going through their mediation and coming to the agreement that they eventually came to. I guess that was about a month or so ago, was it, when they finally settled and decided to move on and discussed and finally settled on how they were going to divvy up the money moving forward and all those types of things. So now that that's over and done with, that's going to be interesting to see. And going back to that Dennis Dodd, like that's something that had been out there about them not being considered the Pac-2 as an automatic qualifier. That was presumed, and that was kind of known that would be the case because it just doesn't make any sense for quite some time now. But that's formal, so now it is official. And I guess I wasn't thinking about next year. I was thinking about in a couple of years when that contract comes back up and what that's going to look like and them really need to get their ducks in a row by then. That was more of what I was speaking to. But, yeah, not surprised to see that action get formalized. That had been out there for a while, and it just wouldn't have made any sense. I mean, you are Oregon State or Washington State and you go undefeated next year and whatever that schedule is going to look like and you are guaranteed something. I don't think that anybody would go with that. So that wasn't surprising to see. But, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to those two schools and how it all works. And it is amazing that throughout all of this last year that it is a Pac-12 team sitting here in the final game of the year with an opportunity to go and win the whole dadgum thing in the final game ever for a conference team. That is I don't know if it's poetry. That's just crazy storytelling is what that is, and wouldn't have ever have guessed that, even though we knew Oregon, Washington, they'd have some pretty good teams, but still to sit here and be in this actual situation and there's a Pac-12 team,
right?
And they're going against a team that they're about to join in the Big Ten next year is just kind of wild.
By the way, to clarify the college football playoff, and this is something that's been in effect with the current contract, the conference gets $6 million for each team that's selected for the semifinal games. No additional distribution to anyone that makes the national title. So $24 million split up among whoever the Big Ten got a chunk, the Pac-12 gets a chunk, the Big 12 gets a chunk in the SEC, each of them. And then, of course, additionally, conferences receive $4 million for each team that plays in a non-playoff bowl game.
Yeah, so arrangement. They don't get more for the national championship, right? No, they get that original. That's what I thought. They get their original payout, and that's just what you get. And if you make the title game, great, but you don't get anything else for that. If you win it, great, but you don't get anything else for that.
What you do get is, again, they will cover the additional expenses such as travel, accommodation, food, which of course
nobody cares about that. Right?
Sense.
But I think you should get like some food coupons or something.
I think they probably
do. One of those coupon books.
Like one of those things. Like everybody gets one if you're in the national championship game, but you don't get it if you're not.
All right, now it's going to be a high-rated game. I don't know if it's going to be the highest-ranked college football game of the year. Michigan,
Alabama one's got a that's a big mountain to climb.
Ridiculous, but it's going to be a big number. So I sent this to Garrett actually back maybe over the weekend. Look at this number. Now, all of these, there's a few footballs that are light-colored compared to the regular almost crimson.
They could have done something like red or like purple or something to differentiate.
The top 100 most watched United States TV broadcast of 2023. Now, go to the second level. First on the left, 21. There's American flag, political programming. That was one, and I don't know what that would have been.
I'm guessing it's probably one of those January 6th hearings.
Okay, all right, so there's that one. Go to round 3 or level 3 all the way to the right, and that's the Academy Awards, all right, which
it exists.
Okay,
still.
Then go to the final row and go about halfway to the right, and then there is the Super Bowl, not the game, but the lead out.
Which is the show that they'll put on whatever broadcast network it's on, one of their big, primetime shows. They'll put on an episode after the Super Bowl. So whatever that was last year, that's what that was.
But to not forget, row 3, go about 5 over, and you'll see a turkey, the Thanksgiving Day Parade. Those are the 5 non-football broadcasts among the top 100 most broadcast in the United States last year.
Yeah, the NFL is powerful. College football is powerful. Of course, college football doesn't get in there until 58.
I was going to say, where does it start?
But
58, 71, 74, and I think that's it.
Yeah, and all the rest are NFL games. And that is how powerful the NFL is.
So 95 of 100. In the year 2020, and this comes from McCann Sports, 72 of the top 100 games were football games, whatever level, mainly the NFL. So it's gone from 72 and in 3 years to 95 of the top 100 most watched broadcasts in America. That's a huge jump in a matter of just a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think that speaks to a love of football in America. I think it also speaks to lack of just really entertaining things outside of football in this world, and I guess on cable, right, is what we're looking at. So, that could be all the minutes spent on whatever Netflix show is not going to register on here. But, yeah, certainly when it comes to cable, I mean, live sports and especially live football, and especially big brands playing live football is where it's at. And the NFL is as big of a brand as it gets in this country, and college football, with a lot of their teams, are not that far behind. So, yeah, man, for as much as we're screaming about the death of college football or whatever else you want to categorize this whole sport as and where it's heading, there is a massive appetite for it. And the bigger teams, the bigger the appetite. So, yeah, not surprised to see that. Very interested to see how high of a number we get for tonight with a big brand like Michigan and one like Washington.
And also, sports helped by actors and writer strikes in that, any of the big premier event shows didn't premiere in 2023. I mean, they're all going to be pushed. Like, there's no, fall big things that were not reality shows or stuff that were already done.
Yellowstone didn't come back.
No, Yellowstone's not even coming back until late next year. So, like, all those things that would normally take it up are I mean, they're being filmed right now or not being filmed yet. And so that helped sports. Like, it's not going to be, nothing's permanent, right? But certainly, football being able to probably take up, especially the last – that last row, there's probably 5 football games that would have been outdrawn by a big premiere event of a very popular show, but not by much.
Alan's saying they canceled Yellowstone, so they're not coming back at all.
No, they're coming. No.
Okay.
Look, here's how it's going to work. I'll tell all the Yellowstone fans. They're going to come back. They're going to finish out the season that they stopped in the middle. With Kevin Costner's there or not remains to be seen.
Oh.
Then after that, they'll have a new show. They'll have some people from the old show.
A spinoff.
And new people. And it's currently titled 2024. And most people think that Matthew McConaughey will be the star of that show.
Okay.
But that's all to be seen.
It's one of the few times in my life that I've actually got attached to any kind of a series, and it gets interrupted because of the strike.
No, it doesn't get. That one actually is both. That was the strike, and the star and creator of the show decided they didn't like each other anymore. So that's another thing. So, yeah. Taylor Sheridan, who's from right here in Central Texas, has done a lot of great stuff, and Kevin Costner were upset about scheduling.
Really?
Yes, Kevin Costner's apparently directed this really epic Western that he was going to take longer time off to do, and he was like, well, I'm going to come to Yellowstone like this many times, and they're like, well, we need you for more than that. You are the main character, and he's like,
He's been really good. It's been a hell of a show, but I guess that's done. Sir, blah, blah, blah. NBC shows premiere next week. CBS the next week, of course, after the Super Bowl. So they have the week of the Super Bowl and the game to preview them as much as they can. When we come back, a little bit about men's basketball. The rankings are out, although they have a tournament that seems to be really, really good. But the rankings are there. We'll check out where the Big 12 is this year and future. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco on Franklin Avenue. Look, they are so good when it comes to local craft whiskeys. I am a whiskey aficionado, as many of you know, of watching the show. And every time I go in there, there's something new I can try. So much so that like I have to, maybe not get a little overzealous and realize that whiskey is not something you can eat like French fries, or you got to enjoy it slowly so you don't buy 5 things at a time because they have that many cool things there. Also, the best craft beer you can find. And it is still winter, so you're going to get those winter brews. But I would say in about a month, you're going to start to see the springtime stuff, which is really, really exciting when those come out. So you've got all this different variety, great customer service, a speedy drive-through window. There's no reason not to go to Riverbend Liquor and Wine for your needs when it comes to that. And now they have 2 locations to serve you. Just absolutely fantastic. I cannot say enough good things about Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco.
Drive into the new year with confidence and excitement during the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get incredible deals on our entire selection of new Ram trucks, Jeeps, SUVs, Chrysler sedans, or a sporty Dodge. Get more for less guaranteed. More value, more selection, more service, more trade-in allowance, and even more competitive financing. Hurry in and start 2024 with a bang. Shop the greatest selection of inventory in Central Texas at Allen Samuels in Waco. In-store or online at allensamuelsdcj.com and make it unforgettable.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com, farm-raised Wagyu beef, and of course it is spectacular. We've discussed it all the time, and you were right. Back when you had that online auction that went so incredibly well, that live auction too, that you were going to have more and more of them, and you've got one again scheduled for the end of the month.
Yeah, so we've got another live auction, so it'll be in person or you can bid online. Coming on Tuesday, January 30th. We're going to have dinner beforehand at 5 o'clock. We're going to have smash burgers. We're also going to have some of our steaks for steak tasting. That way you can taste test it and then bid on it. And then the auction will start at 6:15. So you'll be able to bid at our place in person here in Tyler, Texas, or you can bid online at cci.live.
Tuesday, January 30th.
And don't forget, you can also use the code SICK'EM10 for 10% off your order.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you ordered from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at UnitePrivateNetworks.com.
All right, Paul, Craig, Washington, Michigan. I would like to see Washington win. Nothing against Michigan, and none of this other stuff has really affected me on how I feel about them. I've always been more of, when I grow up, you were either USC or UCLA, Ohio State or Michigan, Alabama, Auburn, Texas or OU. And I was always Ohio State. Always liked the Ohio State, Woody Hayes teams, whatever. I just think Michigan, after all of what they've been through, everything they've weathered through, there's just something the way they went after Alabama and just got in Jalen Milroe's head. Now, I know Penix is different, but I feel like Michigan's going to win the game tonight. And I don't think this is going to be a shootout, like 40-35. I don't think it's going to get to that point. If it does, then obviously that's, to me, very beneficial for Washington.
No, I think this is in the 31-24 kind of range game. I think Michigan will run the ball really well on Washington. I just think that Michael Penix and those wide receivers are too much for anybody to handle, and they just seem to step up in the right moments. J.J. McCarthy's fun. He's a gamer. He's not a stats monster, but when it comes down to you need to play in the right moment, he does it. But I'm leaning – I'm going to go Washington here, probably 31-24. 31-24, something like that. I think there's just too much that Michigan has not seen this year to that level, because there's not many teams that do it to the level that Washington does.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this for the last couple of days. Originally, I was all in on Michigan and their ability to play stout defense and run the football. But as the last couple of days have gone by, I've started to just let my mind wander over to Washington. I just think that they're so riddled with playmakers that they're going to find a way to be able to make some plays against that stout Michigan defense. And I do worry about them stopping the run, but I think they're going to be able to pop a couple of plays. Like, that's what I'm banking on, is that even with great coverage, that Michael Penix is still going to drop it in there to Rome Odunze or to Polk or to McMillan or to whoever else, like he has pretty much all year long. But, yeah, I mean, if this is a low-scoring game, that certainly is going to benefit the Wolverines. But, I mean, you could ask me in 30 minutes, and I'll have convinced myself that Michigan is going to win this game. I think it's going to be a great little contest. The biggest surprise to me would be to have a really one-sided, lopsided type of an affair, not to the extent of last year, because that was just so extreme, but a game where it's not really in doubt halfway through the third quarter or even late into the fourth would be shocking to me. I think this is going to be pretty even and balanced, and I'm fascinated to see how the chess match goes, because we know Michigan wants to do things one way, and we know that Washington wants to do things a whole entirely different way, and something has to give, or they meet in the middle, and whatever comes out on the other end of that combination-wise, I think is a pretty good little ball game. So, yeah, I'm very excited, but I am going Washington. But check back in 20 minutes, and I may have changed my mind. My original gut was Michigan. I just think that they're just so stout and physical and just well-coached and all of those things. But watching Washington the other night, it just feels like a team of destiny type of thing with them. It just feels like they're built for this. And I know Michigan fans can look at it with all we've been through and how long it's been, like we're destined for it as well. So I can see that side of the coin, but just Michael Penix and the way he was throwing it around on Texas, I feel like he's going to be able to drop it into a Jalen Polk or a Rome Odunze and do that a couple of times tonight, and Michigan won't necessarily have all the ammunition to be able to respond.
Yeah, I think that the pace of the game, which the first 8 to 10 minutes, I don't think this thing's going to get out of hand. I hope to God it's as good as any of the semifinals were. I just as a sports fan, when I contacted Matt Brown yesterday evening, he was on with you guys at 4. I said, hey, can you come on the show? And we want to just talk football. Isn't it been kind of refreshing? I know that we've gotten the transfer portal and the NIL and the draft, but it's just a game to discuss a football game. And I'm glad we had a chance to visit with him.
We did at the end.
Yeah, but we did talk about those things. But, yeah, we've also had that for the last 4 months. Yeah. Like, we've had games to talk about, and we've had full weekend lineups to talk about. But, with bowl season, that's kind of gone sparingly, and most of the other type of outside noise news has seemingly taken over, whether it's the playoff format or the continuous gripes for like the third year in a row about NIL or whatever it is. But yeah, this isn't the starter. I mean, this is the end of something, but we've had that. And I think sometimes we do ourselves, and I mean this just in general, everybody do ourselves a disservice of not paying attention of like week 3's schedule might not be sexy, but let's not take it for granted. And then like it's suddenly here we look up and there's one game left. And I think that's what happens sometimes as well. But what a heck of a game to end on, with the storylines that are involved here, whether it be Michigan's long, strange road to get here with all of the outside noise, or it's Washington with the shuttering of their conference and now joining a new conference, and the story of just these individual players and coaches. I think it's a fascinating matchup in a lot of different ways. And so bittersweet is the word I used at the beginning of the show. Is we've had all this football, now we're about to have a lot less of it. And that was notable this past weekend, if not for the NFL being in action like they were. But that's going to start to drop off now as well. So, yeah, we're really into the last few breaths of the football season these next few weeks for sure.
Richard Johnson, who covers sports, he just had a video. The roof at NRG is leaking. A security person told Lane Higgins that indeed, first time in 4 years here, weather in Houston has been terrible. It's been earlier in Waco was a deluge for about a half an hour or so, and even Texas general manager Nick Caserio walked by and was similarly puzzled. So I'm sure that will be taken care of. But wouldn't that be? It's an interesting part of what's going on in the pregame show.
Well, they were. The second time we went to the Texas Bowl, they were great. And the city of Houston is really second to none when it comes to hosting events. But Smokey, if you remember, the first time we were at NRG doing something was the first Baylor appearance in a bowl game in quite a long time against Illinois.
Yeah.
And I had to do an entire pregame show in another room across the parking lot, and it was pouring down rain that day.
It was.
And they would not help Derek Smith and I get over there without getting drowned in the deluge. And no one knew.
And we're on the other side of the stadium.
We're on the other side of the stadium. No one at the ground floor knew where to tell me to go. And I got up there in the booth and sat next to you, and you're like, what happened? I was like, Houston, maybe. But, yeah, I hope they get it worked out.
It's just something to mention.
When they were at the Super Bowl there, and I guess it was 2018, the Super Bowl was there. It was 5-6 years ago. When it was there in Houston, it was absolutely they did a great job. A great job. So, they're hosting events. The city of Houston is awesome at it.
All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5, 365 Sports.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has been proudly serving Texans across the state for over 60 years. Call 254-772-8090 to find an agent who will provide a free review of your auto, home, and life coverage.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 transfer portal questions I have. Feel free to jump in or not, whatever you want to do. But these are just some of the transfer portal things that are still going on when it comes to some of the bigger names.
What are those?
That's the portal. Oh. That's where you don't know this, Smokey, because you've never been in the transfer portal. Yeah. But when you get to go in it, that's what it looks like.
All right, that's very well done, Emery. I just had to be.
Yeah, he loves that logo. He loves it. He loves that logo. It's his favorite. Number 5. Will Evan Stewart take another visit? He's been to Oregon, and he's been very quiet. It's been very quiet around him, but he's been to Oregon, and I kind of think that he's someone who probably mapped this out a little bit tighter than a lot of people did. But he visited there. This would be a tremendous fit for him. And of course, anywhere is a good fit for Evan Stewart because he's such a good player. But for what they're trying to do and having him there with Dylan Gabriel and then Dante Moore for a year would be very exciting, I would think. So Evan Stewart's. Is he going to do that? Is he going to go to USC? Is he going to go to LSU or some of these other places that might be in the mix? I don't know, but I'm curious to see if he does or if Oregon's just probably locked him up right now. Number 4, how much money does Liberty have? We knew they had a lot, but Caden Salter going back to Liberty was a bit of a shocker for me because I thought he was going to try to get that big Power 5 or even SEC check and go and play for Hugh Freeze. Sub question: what does Auburn do at quarterback right now? Because the options for them are starting to dry up, and I'm sure that Hugh Freeze thought he had a really good shot at Caden Salter when he left, but clearly Caden Salter's changed his mind to go back and play another year for Jamie Chadwell at Liberty, which I do think had to come with some financial guarantees from Liberty people. But that was a bit of a shocker over the weekend to see Caden Salter withdraw his name from the portal.
Yeah, I think there's probably something at play that we don't know about. I mean, for him to just abruptly, he was in there for like a week, maybe. I mean, if he did that, I don't know. It felt like he was barely in the portal whatsoever. So maybe the market wasn't what we thought it would be for him. And what did I say last week? And I don't know this to be true at all, but I said the one thing that I do wonder about him is if there's any questions, it's that they played a really light schedule.
Yeah.
But, you know, he had the talent. It's not like he suddenly was like some star player. Like, he was a 4-star guy coming out of high school, but he also had some issues at Tennessee. And I just wonder, is that something that scares people off, or is it just something, is it something that people are unsure about? I don't know. But it's not like he was just like some stud, no questions whatsoever. Boom, he's in the portal. Like, I could see where there's some teams that might go, you know what, like maybe it was the competition, or maybe we don't trust the off the field yet, or maybe, and so I don't know what it was ultimately, but he was not in there for very long, and I can only think that means either Liberty ponied up and gave a huge NIL deal or something, or maybe there just wasn't the interest level that I assumed that there probably would be for a guy who originally went to Tennessee and then had a pretty stellar year for Liberty this past season. So not quite sure. Maybe I'll find out in a couple nights because I think he's going to be at the banquet that I go to as one of the finalists there. But, yeah, I was surprised to see this, and I'm very interested to know what kind of interest there was in Caden Salter in the transfer portal for as brief a stay as he had.
While you brought that up, Craig, the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award banquet is coming up on Wednesday night. Caden Salter, Jonathan Brooks, Jalen Milroe, and Ollie Gordon are the four, I believe, that will
and
be.
There's a fifth that you're missing that now I can't think of it. Ollie Gordon, Jalen Milroe.
Oh, Gente.
Ashton Gente from Boise State.
Yeah.
But that's a tough class to try to pick out who's going to win. They're all very deserving. Number 3, how big of a school is Quinshon Judkins looking for? Craig and I, Smoky, talked about this last week, and that Ole Miss is going for it. I mean, they just got Diego Pounds, as a matter of fact, out of the transfer portal, a left tackle from North Carolina, really good player coming there, and so they're going for it, but apparently Quinshon Judkins thought, well, I'm going to go for it myself. He visited Ohio State this weekend. He was there. So that would kind of like fit what we were talking about, Craig, in if you're not going to stay at Ole Miss when they're clearly outlaying a bunch of NIL funds and getting aggressive to get guys in there, how big are you shooting for? Ohio State, something like that. But yes, Quinshon Judkins at Ohio State. I wonder where else he visits, if anywhere, in looking for that. But this is a dude who is, when it comes to the transfer portal, is surefire a fit for anyone as it can be. The second leading rusher in the SEC, the first player since Herschel Walker to rush for 15 touchdowns in each of his first 2 seasons. So this is a stud now that is going somewhere else. But we were curious as to how big of a spot he was looking for, bigger than Ole Miss and what they're doing. Obviously, they've not won the SEC, so he's going big, and Ohio State's the first stop on his journey.
Yeah, and I want to make mention, too, I don't think I mentioned it with Salter, is like one of the rumors that was out there was that they didn't have his degree, which I don't know. So like I said a moment ago, I just want to throw that in there in the mix as well. It could be a variety of different reasons for why, but I am curious to know which one it is for why Salter jumped back in the portal. But that's why he apparently may not have ended up at Auburn. Who the heck really knows, though? But with Judkins, I mean, there's not many options. Ohio State would certainly check that box, though. I mean, there are plenty of schools that are bigger, better, badder, more historic than Ole Miss. Not a ton, but there are more than a few. But the combination of what you would think that they would have NIL-wise, the ability to play in the SEC and just finish out your career where you started it, knowing you're going to be a major focal point, knowing they're retooling and spending out the wazoo to get your defense better, to help make you better and be a national championship contender. I mean, how many spots offer all those different things? And there's not many, but Ohio State is certainly one that can offer you all that and then some. So, yeah, I could see that, but there's not much longer of a list. You go like, what's a true step up from the situation you were in? So, yeah, that would make some sense.
Number 2, this was maybe more of a Miami question for anything, but what happens if Tagovailoa does not get his year 6, which, I have no reason to believe that he won't. I mean,
I do. It's the fact that he played in too many games.
Yeah, don't they need to say enough is enough?
But again, like, they keep trying and they keep losing.
But Paul, if they do that, that opens up the door for everybody that played in 5 games.
Yeah.
So, like, how many people do you think redshirted or didn't redshirt because they played in. So that's I get what you're saying. They don't do anything. They never, but they do. We just don't ever give them credit when they do, and it's so few and far between that we just don't even realize it because it gets drowned out by all the things they don't do with the NCAA. But if you say, you know what, you did play over the redshirt threshold, and it wasn't because of anything other than really mismanagement as much as anything, he shouldn't have played in the 5th game. If you're going to cite that and Alabama's giving you the support, okay, but I just think that opens Pandora's box of like, well, where does it stop then? Because this guy could say, well, I was at this school and I played in 5 games and I should now deserve a bonus year. And then everybody who played in 5 games deserves a bonus year. Now, maybe that's 5 guys across the country for all I know. Maybe that's not that big of a deal, but I just think that would be a really bad precedent to set. But then again, it's the NCAA, and I know that's where you're coming from, so I get it.
It's almost like they were going to say you couldn't transfer a second time. Remember that like 2 or 3 weeks ago? And then, no, you can transfer, and you can transfer again next year. I understand what Craig's saying because it's true. But
I get there has to be a line, but
seal the damn deal, and here's the end line here.
Yeah, there does, but like again, if they buy his argument, and Alabama and Maryland are clearly supporting him in this.
No,
that's the other thing is that. I don't know. If he doesn't get year 6, I guess the other part of it is, all right, well, then what's the next lawsuit? I don't think he's really going to die on that hill. He'll just go to the NFL, but It's
a rule, though. It's a rule. You played in 4 or less, and let's not act like it's a bad rule, too. It's like you had this rule come into play a few years ago where you can get freshmen or whoever into the game and still maintain their red shirt, so now we're just going to throw that to the wayside? Where does it stop where... No, you actually can't do this. There's got to be something where there's not a fight over it or eventually the player gets their way. And I'm all for the player getting their ways in a lot of these topics because it was long overdue. But, damn, man, rules are rules eventually, and you have to, force them. So, yeah, if they do give him a year 6 because they're like, well... It's not your fault, it's the staff's fault, then maybe I'm overblowing it and there's 2 guys that would be able to then claim they need a waiver to get their year back, but it just seems like it'd be a bad thing to walk back.
Yeah, I'm still wondering in Alabama's thing when he got to that 5th game and he's like, well, we like to take the knee. Be like, no,
exactly.
Have anybody else do it.
I saw an article say, well, technically he played it. No, he didn't. He played in 5 games.
Yeah.
He played in 5 games, whether it was for a play or it was a dozen. He played no technically about it, and it's not technically the rule. The rule is you play in 4 or less, and you maintain your red shirt. And he played in 5, and so that's what I was saying on Friday of who was the staffer at Alabama, or was the staff idea that, well, he's not going to be here for 4 years anyways. He's going to be in the NFL, so let him play, and the red shirt won't matter in the long run. I don't know, but that was fumbled by whoever was in charge of the eligibility decisions there, whether it be he himself or whether it was the Alabama staff. But, in hindsight, being 2020, they screwed that up.
Yeah, this is really bad. But I was going to say this about Miami, but I guess they already have their answer in Reese Poffenbarger. So
not if he's available. Not if
I know, but if he's not, then they've at least done what they set out to do, which is get a transfer quarterback, and one with interesting potential, to say the least.
Yeah, they got to the FCS semis. Mm-hmm. He had nice numbers. I don't think he's the next Cam Ward, but I know somebody in the chat pointed out took Cam a couple years. He was very good in his first year too.
Yeah.
He was very good in his first year, but I don't know. That's a very interesting question here and a very interesting ruling, but it would appear that Miami's at least somewhat addressed it, if not all the way addressed it. But if a guy like Tonga Viola becomes available, then I think, hey, Reese, you have a little competition this spring, or maybe there's somebody else we're not thinking of.
He's only going to be here for a year. Hope you're here longer than that. No,
there you go.
And number 1. Malachi Nelson to Boise. This one, and great for Boise to get a guy who is the number 1 or number 2 quarterback on everybody's boards. But, Garrett and I were talking about this when I got in today. Sometimes, and I don't know if this is true for Malachi Nelson because he grew up in LA, but sometimes, that vibe isn't for you and you find out it's not and you want to go someplace that's maybe a little more personal and localized. And Boise State is certainly that. It's not certainly, USC.
It's not Los Angeles.
It's not Los Angeles by any stretch of the imagination. And look, Randy Johnson didn't like pitching in New York. It just wasn't his vibe. It didn't make him any less of a player or anything like that. It was just, he didn't like pitching in Yankee Stadium. It didn't work out well for him there. And maybe Malachi Nelson just wanted something different than the bright lights of USC. But it's still really surprising that, this is a dude who's a 5-star quarterback and number 1 and number 2 overall prospect in the country, and then winds up at Boise State a year later. Still kind of surprising, but great for Boise State to get a guy that's this talented.
Well, the first thing I'll say is, what else is great is a guaranteed starting quarterback job.
Yeah.
That's really great, too. And after USC's bowl game, I don't think that was necessarily in the cards for Malachi Nelson.
Yeah.
Based on their depth chart this year, it wasn't. So I think that speaks to the appeal as much as anything else does with him. But, yeah, that's a really good get. He's from Los Alamitos, so I don't know how that stacks up in terms of, towns and how big that is compared to Boise and all of that. But I think it's as much that, you've got a job availability there and a really good program. Not sure about all his relationships behind the scenes and things that work there, but it was surprising to see him move so quickly just from an outside observer point of view and land at Boise State when the thought obviously immediately goes to, all right, well, what other Pac or Big Ten or SEC schools he going to end up going to, being such a formerly highly rated guy. But that was a surprise to see Boise, and I guess the biggest surprise was to see how quickly it moved. But a great get for the Broncos. They got a new staff and a new era kicking off with a pretty big time player and the highest rated guy they've ever had in that program's history. So there will be some fun things to watch out there in Idaho for the Broncos.
All right, so in 40 minutes or so, the kickoff in Houston, NRG. Washington and Michigan. Washington's last national title was in 1991 with Don James, who passed away about a decade ago. Unbelievably successful head coach there. Steve Empman was a part of the Heisman Trophy race. He was fourth to Desmond Howard. And then also Michigan in 97. Not Desmond Howard. Charles Woodson, I think it was. 97, Michigan winning, splitting it with Nebraska with Desmond Howard winning the Heisman Trophy. So, Paul, you think Washington?
I'm taking Washington.
Greg, Washington. I'm not one of those who likes to be different, but I just, for whatever reason, and we could find out pretty quickly, but I'll take Michigan, just feel like it's in my gut. Also, good luck to our good friend Dave Softy Mahler. He is eating up. He's a huge fan that does a talk show in Seattle, who's in Houston, and he could not even contain himself earlier, and that's hard for him to do anytime. Garrett Ross, thank you very much. We should have the latest and last of the Texas Beef House Pick'em contest winners after tonight's game between the Wolverines and the Huskies. For Emery Winter and Jack McKenzie, for our great sponsors, back again tomorrow. I'm David Smoak. For Craig and Paul, good night, 365 Sports.